Chapter 8:29. Whether it was Go-Chi or the silver-haired woman, they were so depressed that they almost vomited blood. The target they wanted to kill appeared in front of them, but they didn't recognize him. Instead, they were extorted by Lin Sun for a huge amount of spiritual essence. It was so shameful that they didn't realize it until now. If this matter was spread out, how could they keep their faces? "You're courting death." Go-Chi couldn't hold back anymore. He let out a low roar, and a huge shadow of a black dog appeared behind him. It was incomparably terrifying and overflowing with black light. "Kill!" the silver-haired coquettish woman shouted. They all moved to kill Lin Sun to vent the shame and anger in their hearts. But Lin Sun smiled and said, "I've been waiting for you to fall into my pot to satisfy my appetite." Boom! Lin Sun took a step forward, and his momentum suddenly changed as if he had turned into a demon. He punched out, and the fist force rushed out like a real dragon, directly breaking a man's chest. His bones were broken, and blood burst out. Everyone was shocked. How terrible it was! A strong man was killed with one punch? "How dare you!" Go-Chi rushed over and slapped down with his palm. With a bang, blood surged like a river of purgatory blood pouring down, which was a terrifying scene. Dong! Lin Sun took a step forward, and a snow-white ice dragon rushed out. It raised its head and roared like a dragon. With a bang, it waved its tail and dissolved Go-Chi's attack. Lin Sun had already taken the opportunity to launch his killing move. Puff, puff. Like lightning, he first confined several oncoming opponents with the hegemonic prohibition, and then suppressed them with the seal of Swanee. The Black Sea Tengu powerhouses didn't even have time to dodge before their bodies exploded in the air, turning into a mist of blood. It was too domineering. Everyone present gasped. As soon as Lin Sun made a move, he killed all the people on the spot like slaughtering chickens and monkeys. His arrogant and matchless posture was like a demon descending to the world. "These dogs are too weak. Their meat must be terrible." Lin Sun's eyes were like lightning, which deterred everyone. Only Go-Chi and the silver-haired woman were left in the field. "Lin Sun, you're courting death!" Go-Chi roared, angered to the point where he was trembling. He also felt fear. Only now did they realize that their opponents were too powerful, not something they could contend against. This caused Go-Chi to feel as if he was on the verge of collapse, and he was on the verge of going mad. First, he was deceived and extorted, and then he killed them as if they were food. But it just so happened that they weren't a match for him. This simply caused him to feel aggrieved and humiliated to the extreme. "Hand over your life!" Lin Sun's figure flashed, and he confronted Go-Chi with the 9 strikes of shaking heaven. His fists were wide and simple, with a kind of earth-shaking and earth-shattering power. Boom! This restaurant trembled, affected by the collision of this terrifying power, about to collapse. The guests inside were all horrified, fleeing in panic. Only the disciple of the Ascension Sword Sect and the 5th prince of the Flameclaw clan, Lu Jioga, could be considered to be composed. But when they witnessed the strength Lin Sun revealed, they couldn't help but be shocked in their hearts. Kacha! Go-Chi's right arm was severed, and blood splattered everywhere. He was a reincarnation developing realm expert and was considered a top figure among the younger generation. However, he had suffered a great loss in the first round. Everyone present was moved. "Kill!" At the same time, the silver-haired woman let out a loud shout, but she suddenly flashed, broke through the wall with a bang, and fled out of the restaurant. Obviously, she knew that she was no match for Lin Sun, and she didn't dare to continue fighting, intending to seek help. However, how could Lin Sun let her go? An obscure syllable came from his lips. "Tut!" Paleo's roar. Lin Sun's whole body shone like a terrifying sun, and a sound wave transformed into a golden ripple that spread out from his mouth. That roar was vast and boundless, like the cry of an ancient god, and it was boundlessly terrifying, as if it could shatter mountains and rivers. Puff! The silver-haired woman who had just flown out of the restaurant exploded directly, turning into a cloud of blood mist. Hiss! A gasp sounded in the field. Everyone was shocked, and their souls trembled. It was too terrifying. That woman was a reincarnation developing realm existence, but she was killed by a roar. Someone in the restaurant screamed, and his face was pale with fright. What a terrifying secret method inheritance! The eyes of Lu Jioga, the fifth prince of the Fire Raven clan, overflowed with divine light, and his heart was slightly touched. This reminded him of the talent inheritance of the golden-horned Azure Lion clan, Lion's Roar. The successors of the Emergence Sword sect were also surprised, and their expressions changed slightly. They had thought that this guy from the mortal world was very spineless, and it was despicable for him to snitch on them for the sake of the spiritual marrow. They had never thought that in the blink of an eye, Lin Sun seemed to have become another person. His divine power was matchless, arrogant, and domineering, and it shocked them. Sha Yutong's heart was in turmoil, and his face was gloomy. It had only been a few years, and he couldn't imagine how the country boy who had just arrived at the Forbidden City could become so powerful. He couldn't accept this. The roar shocked everyone, but for Lin Sun, this was the result of him deliberately controlling his strength. Otherwise, the entire restaurant was bound to disintegrate and turn into powder in an instant. At this moment, his figure was tall and graceful, overflowing with an illusory green glow. His temperament was otherworldly and ethereal, but his power was unparalleled, like a demon god descending to the mortal world. Only Go Chi was left in the restaurant. He looked at Lin Sun in despair, and his heart was drowned in fear. Only now did he fully realize how terrifying this young man in front of him was. Lin Sun, are you planning to become the enemy of the Black Demon Tengu tribe? Go Chi gritted his teeth. He could only rely on the power of his tribe to intimidate Lin Sun. Crack! Lin Sun didn't bother to talk nonsense. He leaped forward and continued to kill. There was no suspense at all, and in the blink of an eye, Go Chi's neck was broken. With a bang, Go Chi turned back to his original form, the huge black dog body lying on the ground, blood gushing out. At this point, all the experts of the Black Demon Tengu tribe were killed. Or rather, it should be said that this was a massacre. They didn't meet any strong resistance at all, and were dealt with by Lin Sun as easily as crushing dry weeds and smashing rotten wood. That kind of decisive killing and invincible power made the hearts of the guests in the restaurant tremble again. He was too strong, and it subverted their imagination. Lin Sun seemed to have done something that couldn't be more casual. He picked up the black dog body that Go Chi had transformed into and stuffed it into his storage ring. However, before he left, he looked at the other box and locked his eyes on Sha Yutong. Sha Yutong's eyes narrowed, and he was a little surprised. Did this guy still want to do something to him? Zhuo Guanglan, who was at the side, looked calm and thoughtful. Lu Jioga was drinking and watching from the side, and the heirs of the Emergence Sword sect nearby were secretly on guard. At this moment, the atmosphere was a little quiet and oppressive. Lin Sun smiled and said, "You did well just now. It's best that you draw a clear line between us. This way, it'll save you the trouble of having the Black Sea Tengu tribe find trouble with you because of me. From now on, we're no longer friends." Lin Sun heard what Sha Yutong had said before. In front of the heirs of the Emergence Sword sect and Lu Jioga, Sha Yutong regarded him as an uncouth country boy and was ashamed to be associated with him. This made Lin Sun feel bitterly disappointed. He didn't want to retaliate against Sha Yutong, but from now on, if Sha Yutong slandered and humiliated him like this again, then don't blame him for being impolite. After saying that, he withdrew his gaze and floated away. Sha Yutong's expression was uncertain, and he seemed to be extremely angry. He suddenly stood up and looked at Lin Sun from afar like lightning, as if he was going to teach Lin Sun a lesson. "Junior brother Xie, don't be angry. He's just a guy who gets carried away. Why bother with him?" Zhuo Guanglan smiled and stopped Sha Yutong. Yes, this guy is very arrogant. He even dared to make an enemy of the Black Demon Tengu tribe. It won't be long before he is doomed. That's right. The Black Sea Tengu clan is so powerful that even the ancient orthodoxies in the world don't dare to provoke them. He's just a coarse youth from the lower realm, yet he chose to make enemies with such a clan. Isn't he courting death? Other successors of Yuhua Sword sect also comforted him. Sha Yutong sighed in his heart and sat down silently. In fact, he was still angry and wanted to kill Lin Sun with his own hands. Did he really think that he could be lawless and disregard me just because he became stronger? This was the reason for Sha Yutong's anger. In fact, it was a psychological gap. A long time ago, he had never taken Lin Sun seriously and regarded him as an uncouth country boy. But he was born in the Xie family, one of the 7 top aristocratic families of Xiao Empire. His talent was outstanding, and his status and identity were not comparable to Lin Sun at all. Until he entered the ancient Desolation realm to cultivate, he successfully joined Yuhua Sword sect to cultivate, which gave him a natural sense of superiority when facing Lin Sun. But the things that happened today made him feel embarrassed. He suddenly realized that the young man he looked down upon had now grown to a point where he was about to surpass him. How could he, who had always been proud, accept this? This young man is not simple. Lu Jioga, the 5th prince of the Fire Raven clan, who had been watching from the side, said softly. His eyes were surging with divine light. If it's possible for him to appear at the Tao Discussion Lantern Festival, I'd be interested in sparring with him. Immediately, Zhuo Guanglan, Sha Yutong, and the others were shocked. They didn't expect Lu Jioga to think so highly of Lin Sun. At this moment there was a cry of surprise in the restaurant. I'm sure that he's the peerless talent that rose in the fire spirit state. A young man like a demon. It must be him. The Black Demon Tengu clan wanted him, but he took the initiative to show up and kill his opponent. Only he has the courage to do so. My God, this demon Lin actually appeared in our Snow Maple City? There was an uproar in the restaurant and everyone was extremely shocked. Previously, they despised Lin Sun's behavior, thinking that he was shameless and wanted to tell the Black Demon Tengu clan about Demon Lin's whereabouts. Who would have thought that he was Demon Lin? This was embarrassing and also made people sigh with emotion. Perhaps only Demon Lin dared to come and claim his own reward. Hearing these discussions, Zhuo Guanglan, Lu Jioga, and Sha Yutong suddenly realized something. This young man from the lower realm was really Lin Sun, the demon Lin who had risen to fame in the West Hung boundary. What was funny was that Sha Yutong had said with certainty that these 2 Lin Sun were not the same person, but merely had the same name. Chapter 830. Sha Yutong clenched his fists quietly, and his heart was filled with unspeakable shame and indignation. A youth that he had never thought much of had now become Fiend God Lin, who shocked and caused an uproar. He could not accept it. At this moment, even Zhuo Guanglan was silent for a moment, and then he chuckled. In this case, I also want to learn from him and see his ability. I hope he has the opportunity to participate in the Tao Discussion Lantern Festival. All the descendants of Feather Sword sect looked at each other. A young man from the mortal world had made such a big sensation. Not only did he arouse the interest of Lu Jioga, the 5th prince of Fire Raven clan, but also Zhuo Guanglan, one of the 5 inherited disciples of Feather Sword sect, seemed to pay attention to this young man, which inevitably caught them off guard. If you dare to appear in the Tao Discussion Lantern Festival, I will defeat you with my own hands first. Sha Yutong's heart surged with hatred, and his teeth were almost crushed. Dude, what happened in the restaurant? Outside the restaurant, a strong practitioner of Wind Whisperer clan began to inquire about the news like a cat smelling blood. When he learned everything he wanted to know, the strong practitioner's eyes shone with excitement and he grinned. Big news. Absolutely big news. The strong practitioner of Wind Whisperer clan seemed to be able to imagine that when he spread the news, it was bound to cause a sensation and attract everyone's attention. He made a prompt decision, turned around, and went to the message tree to spread the news as soon as possible. However, just as he moved, he was stopped. "Are you going to spread the news? Why do you ask if you know? Get out of the way, don't waste time." The strong practitioner of Wind Whisperer clan was very impatient. However, when he saw the appearance of the person who stopped him, he jumped 3 feet high and said involuntarily, "Lin, Lin." Before he could say anything, Lin Sun glared at him, and he immediately shut his mouth. "What's your name?" Lin Sun asked. "Bai Xiaoxing." "Good name." "Hey Lin. Child Lin, what can I do for you?" Bai Xiaoxing asked. "Do me a favor and spread the news that I, Lin Sun, have no intention to be the enemy of the entire Black Sea Dog tribe. But if they still don't intend to stop, don't blame me for being rude. Young Master Lin, can I ask exactly how you will be impolite?" Bai Xiaoxing's heart itched and he was extremely curious. Lin Sun said in a joking tone, "Maybe one day, you will slaughter all the black demonic dogs in the world?" Bai Xiaoxing was instantly flabbergasted. This wasn't just impolite, it was obvious that he wanted to annihilate the entire Black Sea Tengu clan. He couldn't help but ask, "Young master, are you joking?" "Just take it as a joke," Lin Sun said with a smile. Then he floated away. However, Lin Sun didn't expect that soon after he left Snow Maple City, the all-seeing star made such a big movement. Demon God Lin has appeared in Snow Maple City and killed a group of Black Sea Tengu experts in a fit of rage. At the same time, Demon God Lin announced that he has no intention to be the enemy of the Black Sea Tengu clan. But if the Black Sea Tengu clan still doesn't intend to stop, he will slaughter all the black demonic dogs in the world one day. On this day, when the news spread, the whole Snow Maple City was in an uproar. Demon God Lin is so fierce and domineering. Who dares to ignore the threat of the Black Sea Tengu clan like him? Many practitioners exclaimed, thinking that Lin Sun was full of courage and his demonic power was shocking. For so many years, I haven't seen any younger generation dare to declare war on the Black Sea Tengu clan like Demon God Lin. The younger generation will surpass us in time. Some practitioners of the older generation sighed with emotion. "Humph, this lad has just risen for a few days. Does he really think he is invincible in the world? Too hard is easy to break. His arrogance is like a meteor in the sky, destined to disappear in a flash and die in this world, unable to live long." Some practitioners thought otherwise, thinking that Lin Sun's move was too stupid. Wanting to fight against the entire Black Sea Tengu clan alone was no different from an egg hitting a stone or an ant trying to shake a tree. They were afraid that he would be doomed before long. No matter what, this news about Lin Sun set off a great uproar, shaking the whole city and spreading to the whole Cloud Dream State at an astonishing speed. Some strong practitioners of the Black Sea Tengu clan were so angry that they almost went berserk. Slaughter all the black demonic dogs in the world? This lad should be killed. Moreover, they were also dissatisfied with the Wind Whisperer clan. What the hell was this news? It was so insulting. How could the Wind Whisperer clan say such words? Realizing that the situation was not good, the strong practitioners of the Wind Whisperer clan quickly spread the news. "Friends of the Black Sea Tengu clan, please don't misunderstand. This is what Demon God Lin said. It doesn't represent the attitude of the Wind Whisperer clan." But no matter what, this news caused a great uproar and even attracted the attention of many major forces. They began to investigate and understand Lin Sun's identity and background. For a time, Lin Sun, like a comet, officially entered the vision of many major forces with this series of deeds. However, the West Hung world was too large after all, with thousands of provinces. Although Lin Sun's deeds were sensational, they were only limited to one area. His reputation had not yet reached the point of shaking the whole West Hung world. But as time went by, more and more practitioners and forces in the West Heng world would inevitably know the existence of Lin Sun. This was fame. Among the younger generation, some people became famous all over the world by virtue of their superb talent, and some people were known by their identity and status. There were also some people like Lin Sun, who had gone through countless bloody battles and killed their way to fame. For Lin Sun, he had just arrived in the West Heng world for less than half a year. Among the younger generation, he could only be regarded as a rising star. Although his influence was fermenting and spreading, he was still far behind some peerless talents who were famous in the whole West Heng world. Of course, this was only the difference of fame and influence, not the real comparison of fighting power. On the main trunk of the message tree, there were 3 ice leaves the size of cattail leaf fans, displaying different scenes. On the first leaf, Lin Sun was fighting against the mysterious masked girl in the sky like a demon god. On the second leaf, there was a bounty order from the Black Sea Dog tribe, full of bloody murderous spirit, which was frightening. On the third leaf, there was the news about Lin Sun killing a group of strong Black Sea Dog tribe in the Drunken Flower Shade restaurant, including Lin Sun's voice against the Black Sea Dog tribe. The successors of Feather Sword sect and Lu Jioga, the 5th prince of the Fire Raven clan, stood there, staring at the different messages on the 3 leaves, and fell into a long silence. Suddenly, an invisible aura surged from Lu Jioga's body, causing his fiery red robe to flutter. A sharp light flashed in his eyes as he released a terrifying aura. This shocked everyone nearby. Their expressions changed greatly and they all retreated. Almost at the same time, Zhuo Quanglan, who was standing in silence, also shot out a fierce sword intent straight into the sky. His black hair fluttered while his ramrod straight figure was peerlessly terrifying like a sword, and his imposing aura caused the hearts of the nearby people to tremble and gasp. However, neither Lu Jioga nor Zhuo Quanglan seemed to be aware of it. Their eyes were fixed on the battle on the first leaf, without blinking. Even they have been aroused with the fighting spirit in their hearts. Some sharp-eyed people immediately saw that the aura reflected around Lu Jioga and Zhuo Quanglan was affected by the battle on the screen. This was the feeling of aura between the peerless talent. It was quite subtle, and only those who had reached their level could understand it. Xia Yutang also saw this scene. His heart was in turmoil, and he felt more and more resentful. He couldn't imagine how Lin Sun could grow so fast. The peerless demeanor of looking down on the mountains and rivers shocked him. Until he saw the unintentional aura of Zhuo Quanglan and Lu Jioga, which made Xia Yutang feel like he was dreaming. Did this mean that Lin Sun already had the potential and foundation to fight against Senior Zhuo and Lu Jioga? No. Impossible. How could he rise so fast in just a few years? Xia Yutang couldn't accept it. He was eager to see Lin Sun and fight him head-on. Only by defeating Lin Sun could he get rid of the knot in his heart. Perhaps this could already be called an inner demon. If he didn't get rid of it, it would definitely become a hindrance to his cultivation. Xia Yutang was very smart and talented. Otherwise, he couldn't have achieved what he had today. He almost instantly judged that Lin Sun had become a knot in his heart. If he didn't defeat Lin Sun, his state of mind was bound to leave a shadow. For practitioners, once such a thing happened, it was simply a disaster. It would seriously affect their cultivation and even stop them on the road of cultivation. However, Xia Yutang had never thought that there would be such a day. A young man who he had never paid attention to could affect his mind now. If this kid is able to survive the pursuit of the Black Sea Tengu clan, he will definitely become a top figure among the younger generation of our Western Heng world that cannot be ignored. At this time, Lu Jioga suddenly spoke and made such a judgment. Is the battle of the world really coming? A young man who was unknown in the past can rise like a comet. In today's world, how many people are there like him who rose to fame from obscurity? Zhuo Quanglan murmured, his eyes full of frightening light. Zhuoquanglan and Lu Jioga glanced at each other as though they were telepathic. They could see through each other's thoughts. When Lin Sun appeared, there was no doubt that they found another worthy opponent. Of course, the premise was that this young man could survive this confrontation with the Black Demon Dog tribe. Otherwise, everything would be empty talk. It was also in the evening of the same day that groups of Black Sea Spirit Cavalry began to appear in Snow Maple City. Groups after groups of experts belonging to the Black Sea Tengu race appeared with murderous intent. Gathering together, the entire Snow Maple City was filled with a tense and oppressive atmosphere, as if a storm was brewing. Chapter 831. In the wilderness the mountains stretched on. In the evening, the sunset glow was like fire, dyeing the green sky red and bathing the mountains in it, showing a magnificent orange red. The sunset was infinitely beautiful, but it was near dusk. Lin Sun walked alone in the ancient and primitive mountain forest. The luster cast by the sunset glow made his handsome figure very long. Occasionally, the roar of beasts and the cry of birds could be heard, which made the wilderness more quiet. Creation of all things, Tao follows nature. Cultivation and enlightenment should be sought from heaven and earth. Lin Sun walked steadily in the mountain forest with his clothes fluttering in the wind. The ancient forest was also dyed with a layer of brilliant red, hazy like smoke. Along the way, Lin Sun ran the secret method of Qiu Nyo's heart, and his state of mind showed a kind of dustless and ethereal state, like a clear lake, which could reflect the changes of all things in the world. He was pondering the Tao of water he had mastered. Now, he was close to breaking through the level of reincarnation developing realm, and he only needed to break through the level of Tao of water. Hualala, before long, a turbulent river rushed out of the mountain valley, like a jade belt, flowing into the distance. The waves were like pearls, splashing and rolling, shining with illusory and transparent luster in the setting sun. Lin Sun stood upright by the river, meditating in meditation. His figure was tall and straight, motionless, as if he had turned into a sculpture. Until the twilight faded and the night fell, he turned around and floated away. The best is like water. Because it has nothing, it can enter into no space, omnipresent and endless. At night, Lin Sun sat quietly by a stream, immersed in meditation both physically and mentally. Nothing in the world is weaker than water, and no one who is strong can defeat it. This is called the combination of softness and hardness. The next morning, Lin Sun woke up from meditation. The moment he opened his eyes, a drop of dew slipped down from a grass leaf beside him. It was crystal and round, drawing an arc in the void and falling to the ground, breaking into strands of watermarks, and then infiltrating into the soil and disappearing. Lin Sun was stunned and seemed to understand something. After a while, he got up and continued to move forward. Rumble! In front of a quiet and secluded valley, a waterfall poured down from the precipice like a white dragon, and it charged into a jade-green pond, causing a myriad of waves to splash up. Lin Sun had been standing here for a day and a night, watching the waterfall, the spray, the mist, the ripples and waves of the green pool. Lin Sun squatted down and looked at a rock on the side of the green pool when it was late at night, sparkling with the starlight. There were many honeycomb-like holes on the surface of the rock, and the diameter was only as thick as a thumb. There were many honeycomb-like holes on the surface of the rock, and the diameter was only the thickness of a thumb. Lin Sun murmured, "The waterfall, the spray, the mist, the ripples, the waves are ever-changing, demonstrating the essence of water to the extreme. However, all the changes are the same as the essence of water." All kinds of understanding flowed into Lin Sun's heart like a trickle, making his qi as clear and mellow as water. Before Lin Qi, Lin, he, mountain, and water. Lin rose. And rose. Lin. He stretched out his 5 fingers and waved casually. Some water droplets splashed out of the waterfall, as if they were controlled, were suddenly elongated from round and clear, and turned into tiny needle-like sharp water swords, crystal clear. Clatter as soon as they appeared, they shot out of the valley. The night was as dark as ink. It was dark and quiet outside the valley, but now there was a muffled sound, as if something heavy had fallen to the ground. Almost at the same time, Lin Sun appeared here. There were 6 corpses lying on the ground, with a bloody hole where their hearts were, still bleeding. Their eyes were wide open with a look of horror. They came so fast. Lin Sun frowned. The corpses on the ground were the strong men of the Black Demon Dog tribe, which made him realize that from tonight on, the journey was destined to be turbulent again. Moreover, since the Black Demon Dog tribe didn't intend to stop, they would definitely send out a stronger force than before. However, Lin Sun didn't worry about anything. Unless a Real King appeared, it would be difficult for others to threaten him. On the 7th day after leaving Snow Maple City, Lin Sun's body sank little by little in the depths of a vast lake in the mountains. In the process, he emptied himself and focused on perceiving the breath, power, flow and rhythm of the water, until he sank to the bottom of the lake. Lin Sun opened his eyes and waved his palm. A whirlpool suddenly appeared in the water and rotated rapidly. Soon, the whirlpool accumulated more and more water, making a rumbling sound. Then, the vast lake was stirred, setting off stormy waves, and a huge whirlpool water column appeared, rushing up to the sky. Boom! At that moment, it was like a white dragon rushing out of the lake, spinning wildly, rolling up thousands of waves, making the lake water boil. Looking carefully, the void seemed to be broken into pieces, turning into turbulent flows. More than a dozen black figures, men and women, appeared on the lakeside. At this moment, they all looked at the whirlpool water column in the middle of the lake in surprise. Whoosh! After the water rushed to the clouds, it turned into a heavy rain and poured down. Suddenly, the area was covered with misty rain and dyed with gorgeous and dreamy rainbows. Noiselessly, like a dream, like a thread, the rain fell on the bodies of those men and women. Puff, puff. Suddenly, a terrible scene appeared. Those men and women had no time to react. Their bodies seemed to be cut by thousands of sharp blades and fell to the ground with blood and flesh. In the distance, the lake was bright and misty, while the lakeside silently turned into a bloody purgatory. Corpses and bones turned into mud, and the air was full of blood. Whoosh! Lin Sun's figure floated out of the lake with his hands behind his back. Standing on the misty lake, a lot of enlightenment emerged in his heart. Small is silent, large is turbulent. It has the capacity to accommodate hundreds of rivers and unfathomable implication. It stands aloof from worldly affairs and can nourish all things. If it fights with the world, it will be invincible. In the murmur, Lin Sun's clothes fluttered and he disappeared in the vast mountains and rivers like an immortal. From beginning to end, he didn't even look at the corpses by the lakeside. Because he didn't need to look at them to know that they were spies from the Black Demon Tengu tribe. It was worth mentioning that this was the 6th batch of enemies he had killed along the way. But from this day on, the enemies that appeared on the road were obviously different. Almost all of them had the cultivation of reincarnation development realm, and they were vigilant and experienced. There was no lack of old guys who were cruel and cunning. It was getting more and more dangerous. Lin Sun had a strong sense of vigilance. He realized that he didn't have much time left. Maybe it wouldn't be long before the half-step king or even the real kings would come one after another. It was the 15th day since he left Snow Maple City. Boom! A fierce battle was taking place between the mountains. Lin Sun fought alone against 8 great practitioners of reincarnation development realm from the Black Demon Tengu tribe. These old guys had rich combat experience and were good at joint attacks. They were extremely difficult to deal with. However, Lin Sun was not afraid. He was surrounded by mellow and clear Tao runes, and the clear divine brilliance was like a boiling glow. Above the void, his divine power was immeasurable, and he was as brilliant as the sun, illuminating the mountains and rivers. The sound of the collision was like thunder. In this area, the mountains collapsed, The ancient trees turned into ashes, and the void was full of raging divine brilliance and secret techniques. Spiritual treasures whistled and scattered the clouds in all directions. Within a radius of 1,000 miles, the beasts wailed and ran, and the fierce birds fled in panic. The terrible fluctuations of the battle were about to turn this place into a land of devastation and death. Kill! The enemies exerted all their strength and displayed their trump cards. The power was terrible. 8 great practitioners of reincarnation development realm besieged a young man of Tao insight realm. If this was spread out, it would definitely cause a great sensation in the West Hung world. If people knew that Lin Sun, who was alone from beginning to end, was not suppressed, but had the upper hand, they would not know what to think. Puff! An ice dragon soared into the sky, as if it was made of ice and snow. With a wave of its tail, it swept away one of the great practitioners of reincarnation development realm. His bones and muscles were broken, and he died on the spot. At this moment, the ice drake's steps actually displayed a terrifying killing power that was different from the norm. Boom! The Swanee seal appeared, surging with Tao runes and water light, showing a majestic and boundless power. It broke the void and smashed a great practitioner of reincarnation development realm to the ground. His body was smashed flat, and the ground was stained with blood and flesh. At the same time, Lin Sun's fist force roared and rushed forward. The terrible Tao runes and water light appeared, with an earth-shaking and invincible spirit. Bang! The treasure was blown away with a wail. Bang! The enemy, like falling into the sea of a storm, was drowned by the mighty fist force, and then his body collapsed and disintegrated, turning into blood mist. Today, Lin Sun was really different from the past. He had an unprecedented spirit, like a majestic sea, overwhelming and invincible. Compared with the past, his power was more than a level stronger. In just a moment, the 8 great practitioners of reincarnation development realm were all killed, and no one survived. On the other hand, Lin Sun was completely unharmed. His tall and handsome figure stood upright in the void while he was surrounded by a misty Taoist light, and he seemed like an otherworldly immortal. This was the power of Tao. After many years of meditation and speculation, Lin Sun finally realized the meaning of the Tao of water from the nature of heaven and earth. Water covered all things, combining hardness and softness. There was nothing in the world that was weaker than water, and no one who was strong could defeat it. It had a myriad of changes, so it was invincible. It had no fixed shape, so it was omnipresent, able to accommodate hundreds of rivers, and unfathomable. Without struggle, all things would be silently moistened. With struggle, the world would be invincible. The ancient sages said, "The best is like water." This was the Tao of water. Different from the Tao runes of water, it was a kind of cognition and insight of the meaning of Tao, a new understanding and control of its power. If the realm of Tao runes only grasped the traces of Tao, then the realm of Tao was where the meaning of Tao was. The difference between the two was only one word, but the realm was like the difference between heaven and earth. Chapter 832. The realm of Tao meaning was the second stage of enlightenment, which was beyond the Tao aura. When a practitioner reached this realm, he could use the power of Tao meaning to integrate it into his own cultivation, such as fighting or cultivation. Generally speaking, even if it was a great practitioner who had reached the level of reincarnation developing realm, only a small number of them could comprehend the power of Tao meaning in the creation of heaven and earth. However, Lin Sun could see through the Tao meaning of water with the foundation of Tao insight realm, which was undoubtedly very unique and different from the world. He could be regarded as an anomaly. The setting sun shone, and the clouds of fire were burning. Lin Sun's figure appeared in front of a calm blue lake. The surface of the lake was clear, like a clear and bright mirror, reflecting the scenery at a glance. The images of the nearby mountains and rivers were all projected on the surface of the lake, big and small. Lin Sun's state of mind was also as calm as still water, tranquil and peaceful. He naturally perceived and understood the beauty of heaven and earth that he had never perceived before. The beauty of heaven and earth was unspoken, the 4 seasons were unspoken, and everything in the world was unspoken. Only by meditating and experiencing could one understand its meaning. This was a wonderful effect of the state of mind after comprehending the Tao meaning of water. The mind is as still as water, and can reflect the universe. Lin Sun stood on the lakeside, opened his fist, and silently performed the mystery of 9 strikes for shaking heaven. He didn't use his cultivation, but his fist strength was filled with a kind of lustrous and translucent water essence, like flowing water and clouds, ethereal and simple, without a trace of worldly aura, which was indescribably beautiful. Clatter, on the lakeside in the distance, a ripple was set off on the calm surface of the lake, which seemed to be drawn by the invisible fist strength and resonated. After a short moment, the ripples on the lake transformed into surging and enormous waves that rumbled like thunder, and water pillars that were 300 meters tall surged like numerous water dragons that were pulled by the force of the fist and whistled through the sky. In the end, the entire heavens and the earth were filled with a myriad of streams of water. The boundless glow of water surged through the world, and it revealed a boundlessly powerful and boundless aura. The world began to tremble, the nearby mountains were shaking, and the luxuriant ancient trees were rustling. Some fierce birds and beasts living in the mountains were all trembling and fleeing. Boom! As Lin Sun became more and more engrossed in his practice, the trembling rhythm of heaven and earth became more and more intense, and the mountains and lakes were completely filled with terrifying water light. Even from 100 miles away, one could hear the surging fist energy. It was like a thunderclap from the 9 heavens. It was truly too astounding. He didn't utilize any spirit energy and merely fused the water Tao insight into his fist, yet it deduced a terrifying might that caused the heavens and the earth to resonate and everything in the world to tremble. At this moment, Lin Sun's tall and handsome figure was surrounded by wisps of water light, which made him look unreal and unreal. Boom! Suddenly, he withdrew the force in his fist and took a step forward. An ice dragon soared into the sky, and it was an entire 3 kilometers long. Its body was like a coiled mountain ridge, and it was lustrous and crystalline. It raised its head and roared like a dragon, and it was simply like a true primeval ice dragon had appeared and moved through the world. Dragon ice steps, crack. With a flick of its tail, a nearby mountain range collapsed. At the same time, Lin Sun suddenly raised his head, and 2 lightning-like beams shot out of his eyes. He held his hands in the air and gently pressed them down. A shocking scene appeared. The mountain that was originally collapsing actually stopped abruptly, as if it had been shackled and fixed in place. The splashing dust and gravel all stopped there, motionless. The whole scene showed a state of stillness. Bashya prohibition. All this was not the end. In the following time, Lin Sun performed the mysteries of the 9 changes of Calamity Dragon, such as Swanee Seal, Swanee Chi, Swanee Strike, Yazi Fury, Paleo Roar, etc. But different from the past, the 9 changes of Calamity Dragon, which was fused with the Water Tao insight, had produced an earth-shaking transformation and was more than twice as powerful as before. Until the night fell, Lin Sun was still performing the power of martial arts, using the Water Tao insight as the guide to rebuild his own combat effectiveness. No one knew how long it had been. Boom! Lin Sun suddenly stopped, and the terrible power that was turbulent between heaven and earth suddenly seemed to have lost its traction and dissipated. At the same time, Lin Sun's whole body was filled with a terrible momentum, which spread in all directions. In a twinkling of an eye, all the birds and beasts within a radius of 100 miles fell to the ground, shivering and paralyzed with fear. This was the terrifying aura of a peerless king, and it belonged to the might of someone at the peak of the heavenly passage realm. It was like a ruler among kings, and it affected all living creatures, causing them to tremble and feel an irresistible desire to submit to it. This is the real perfection. I finally achieved it. Lin Sun's eyes burst with brilliant light, tearing the darkness, and his whole body glowed with a kind of perfect and ethereal unique aura. He could clearly feel the surge of his strength, which was much stronger than before. Whether it was the power of his soul or the power of his cultivation, it could be said to have skyrocketed. Soon, all the visions returned to calm. The lake was calm, sprinkled with silver starlight, sparkling. The mountains in the distance were silent, shrouded in the curtain of night. Occasionally, the sound of insects could be heard, which was very quiet. Lin Sun had a feeling that as long as he raised his hand, he could pick up the stars in the sky, and with a step, he could cross endless mountains and rivers. Of course, this was an illusion after the improvement of his strength, but Lin Sun was really powerful. If he was the king of the Tao Insight realm before, he could suppress all enemies. But now, even if there was a king of the Tao Insight realm, he was confident to suppress him easily. Next, I can start to prepare for the promotion to the reincarnation development realm. Lin Sun smiled, and a touch of joy flashed in his heart. As early as when he was in Xiao Empire, he had stayed in the Tao Insight realm. It was not until now that he had finally reached the perfection of this realm. This was no less than successfully climbing a dangerous peak, and there was a kind of joy of conquest and success. Here, a cold voice sounded in the distance, immediately breaking the quiet atmosphere and adding a sense of chilliness to the mountains and rivers in the night. Go! Along with the shout, the night was illuminated by the brilliant divine light. 4 or 5 figures shone all over like scorching suns as they rushed over. Each of them had a terrifying aura, and they were all in the half-step king realm. As soon as they attacked, the mountains and rivers couldn't bear the pressure and collapsed with a bang. The void was chaotic, and everything was in turmoil. The real danger had finally begun. Lin Sun narrowed his eyes slightly. Half-step king realm experts had started to travel together. This was not a good sign, and it proved that the Black Demon Tengu clan had started to get serious. Clang! Without hesitation, Lin Sun directly took out the broken blade and rushed forward to start a fierce battle. He had no intention of escaping. Now that his cultivation had improved greatly and he had comprehended the power of Tao, he was worried that he couldn't find an opponent to practice with. Moreover, Lin Sun also wanted to try how terrifying the power of the broken blade controlled by the wordless inheritance of Taoist pattern formation would be after it was integrated with the power of water Tao. In a gorge that was densely covered in jagged rocks of grotesque shapes, Go Shushing had his hands behind his back while he stood under the night sky with an icy cold expression. 2 old men sat cross-legged by his side. Both of them wore black robes and were senile, but they emanated a suffocating and terrifying pressure just by sitting there casually. They were called Go Yangbua and Go Yangtong. Both of them were old fellows in the king realm, and they'd made a name for themselves many years ago. Their strengths were even slightly stronger than Go Chi, who died at Lin Sun's hands. Old fellows like them rarely made an appearance in the world. They were either in closed-door cultivation to comprehend the secrets of immortality, or they were preparing to overcome the tribulation and attain immortality. It was utterly impossible to ask them to come for ordinary matters. But this time, they had no choice but to come. The reason was very simple. As a king of their Black Demon Tengu clan, Go Chi had died miserably outside without leaving a corpse. This caused the entire Black Demon Tengu clan to be shocked, and they were unable to tolerate this. Moreover, in the recent period of time, the news of Lin Sun repeatedly defeating the experts of their Black Demon Tengu clan by himself had caused an extremely shocking and mighty uproar, and it caused Lin Sun's reputation to rise greatly. But this was undoubtedly an extraordinary humiliation to their Black Demon Tengu clan. If they didn't kill Lin Sun, then wouldn't it mean that their entire Black Demon Tengu clan couldn't even do anything to a youth at the Insight Realm? How would they gain a foothold in West Hing region if that happened? Slaughter all the Black Demon Tengu clan in the world? This kid is really arrogant to the point he's courting death. We'll surely burn his bones and scatter his ashes this time. Go Yangbua spoke indifferently. His figure was emaciated, his eyes were long and narrow, and his aura was gloomy and ghastly. So many days have passed, yet we still haven't heard the news of this kid's death. Xuxing, is your deduction wrong? On the other side, Go Yangtong frowned as he spoke. His face was densely covered in wrinkles while his eyes were muddy, and he seemed extremely old. However, in terms of might, he wasn't inferior to Go Yangbua. Absolutely not. Go Xuxing answered resolutely. The reason he escaped last time was entirely because he possessed a treasured ship that seemed to be a saint artifact. Moreover, the reason why Lord Goda suffered at that time was because he was heavily injured by a single-horned golden-eyed beast king, and it wasn't because of this kid. Right, Go Shan and Go Hai, the two half-step kings, were killed by that single-horned golden-eyed beast king as well. If we really fought, that kid wouldn't be a match for us at all. As soon as he spoke up to this point, an indescribable feeling of grievance and hatred surged in Go Xuxing's heart. The defeat last time was truly too miserable. They were completely tricked by that kid. If they were to fight head-on, that kid probably wouldn't be able to kill them even if he had 100 lives. But why is it that after so many days have passed, we still haven't been able to capture this kid, and instead, we've lost so many clansmen? Go Yangtong's expression was cold and indifferent. Xuxing, the mistake you made last time was too severe. If it wasn't for your grandfather pleading for you and hoping to give you another chance to redeem yourself, the clan would have stripped you of your position as young master a long time ago and punished you severely. He paused for a moment before he continued, if you still don't seize this opportunity, you should be aware of the severity of the consequences even without me telling you. Go Xuxing's heart sank and he said with a livid expression, I understand. Just now I've already sent out 5 half-step kings. Tonight, we'll absolutely be able to take this kid's head. Go Yangtong said lightly, I hope so. If you can't do it, then we'll have to do it. But at that time, I'm afraid you won't be able to redeem yourself anymore. Go Xuxing's heart tightened, and his face became even more livid. Chapter 833. The Black Demon Tengu clan was extremely large, and its forces were spread all over the ancient Desolation region. It had hundreds of thousands of clansmen, which was an astonishing number, and there were also many direct descendants of young masters like Go Xuxing, who had the title of Thousand People Slayer. Others might not understand, but Go Xuxing knew very well how cruel and bloody the competition within the clan was. To stand out among the younger generation, one needed more than just strength. Go Xuxing's position in the clan today was all because he had stepped over piles of corpses, and experienced storms of blood and storms of blood to achieve it. It looked dazzling, but Go Xuxing knew very well that once he lost his power, there would be many people in the clan who would kick him when he was down, and he would never have the chance to rise again. Just like the 2 King Realm old monsters beside him, Go Yangbua and Go Yangtong, who seemed to be here to help him kill Lin Sun. But in fact, the 2 old guys wanted him to fail completely. The reason was simple. Go Yangbua and Go Yangtong were the supporters of another 1,000 people Slayer young master, and they were competitors with Go Xuxing's force. Therefore, even though he had suffered heavy losses, Go Xuxing would rather send his own force to kill Lin Sun than let Go Yangbua and Go Yangtong do it. Once that happened, Go Xuxing would never have the chance to redeem himself and make a comeback. This time, I have to win. Go Xuxing secretly clenched his fist. He had calmly analyzed the reason for his last failure, and finally came to a conclusion. As long as he didn't fall into a trap like last time, and sent 5 half-step King Realm experts to kill Lin Sun together, he would definitely die. Go Xuxing even suspected that even the peerless geniuses of the entire ancient Desolation territory would be doomed if they were to face such a siege. After all, it was a group of half-step king realm experts. Even if they were not real kings, their power was not something that a random peerless talent could fight against. Tonight, I will wait for the good news, and turn things around so that those bastards who want to kick me when I'm down will never have an excuse to attack me again. Go Xuxing murmured to himself. He inadvertently glanced at Go Yangtong and Go Yangtong, his expression uncertain. In the mountains, the battle erupted intensely. Divine radiance engulfed everything, collapsing mountain peaks and causing rocks to crack apart. Rumbling sounds rang through the air. Boom! The snow-white saber radiance swept past a stone mountain and sliced off a section of the mountain that was thousands of feet tall, as if it was cutting through tofu. The scene was terrifying, just like the ancient saber immortals in the legends who could slice mountains and split seas. Lin Sun's figure flickered as he moved in the void. An ice dragon raised its head and roared, coiling around its body, releasing terrifying power. But even so, the situation of the 9 revolutions, 9 being besieged, could not be resolved in a short time. 5 half-step kings were using their full strength, releasing boundless divine might as they activated secret arts and spirit treasures, completely sealing off the area. Rumble. Sometimes they fought fiercely above the 9 heavens, and sometimes they whistled through the vast wilderness. Mountains collapsed one after another, and the earth cracked into terrifying ravines that spread out. Some living beings didn't even have time to escape and were directly crushed on the spot. Such a scene was too horrifying to behold. If this were to happen in the city, it would definitely be a disaster that would lead to endless bloodshed. Little bastard, hand over your life. Amidst an icy cold shout, an old man charged over. He held a brilliant and glowing scroll in his hand. The sun, moon, and stars were reflected within the scroll, and they cycled through it. Ciphers surged out like a torrential rain, and they were filled with terrifying crushing force. This was a unique and miraculous ancient treasure. Once the scroll was unfolded, it seemed to be able to cover the heavens and the earth, and it enveloped everything within it and completely refined them. On the other side, a mighty middle-aged man's wrist shook, and a blood-red spear flashed out. Layer upon layer of spear images pierced through space and emanated peerlessly terrifying penetrative force. Besides this, there was a golden hammer that emanated lightning that struck down, and it was simply like a bolt of lightning descending from the 9 heavens while raging with an aura of slaughter and destruction. The person that held the golden lightning hammer was a woman with a delicate figure, yet her imposing aura was extraordinarily ferocious and terrifying. Dazzling lightning surged on her body, and she seemed like a divine spirit that was bathed in lightning and was born. On the other hand, a man in scholar's robes stood in the surroundings. He had an indifferent expression while a golden lamp floated above his palm. This golden lamp was simple and mysterious. As the wick swayed, thousands of tiny sparks drifted out, which turned into a golden flame dragon and enveloped this area. Looking down from the sky, it was like thousands of golden lights were blooming here, bright and dazzling, and the scene was extremely terrifying. The man in scholar's robes holding the golden lamp was guarding the formation to prevent Lin Sun from escaping. In the face of such a siege, Lin Sun's pressure also doubled, and his expression became unprecedentedly serious. In the past, he had also killed half-step kings with the help of insignificant spiritual bow and blue sky arrow. For example, he killed a half-step king of voodoo barbarian tribe in the bloodthirsty battlefield, and killed Sun Heng, the supreme elder of Lingji sect, a few days ago. He had never really confronted a half-step king of half-step kings. But today, after comprehending the power of Tao and thoroughly reaching the Tao insight realm, Lin Sun really began to fight with a half-step king of half-step kings. Moreover, he had to face the siege of 5 half-step kings alone. The pressure was really great. Since the beginning of the battle, Lin Sun had been in a situation of being suppressed. Not to mention killing enemies, it seemed a little difficult for him to break through the siege. If it weren't for the further transformation of the power of Ice Drake steps after the integration of the power of Water Tao, Lin Sun was likely to have been seriously injured. But anyway, Lin Sun finally resisted this kind of suppression. Moreover, in the fierce battle, Lin Sun was honing himself by fusing the Yuan inheritance of Taoist formation diagram with the Tao meaning of water, so as to deduce a brand new spirit control technique, so that the broken blade also began to show the true power of a divine weapon. A magic weapon. It was a rare secret treasure. Even the real kings rarely owned it. In ancient times, there were too many incredible and horrible rumors about a magic weapon. When some ancient powerful figures used a magic weapon, they could completely cut the heaven and earth, destroy the universe, and mess up yin and yang, which was extremely terrifying. Even though the broken blade was damaged, it was a true magic weapon after all. In the past, Lin Sun was limited by his cultivation, so he was utterly unable to fully display the might of the broken blade. But now all of this was changing. The effects of comprehending the Tao inside of water were absolutely beyond imagination, and it allowed Lin Sun's control of the broken blade's might to start to change, rumble. The mighty middle-aged man held a blood-red spear in his hand, and he crushed the void as he tore through the sky with a shocking momentum. Bang! The broken blade spun and flowed with a white and illusory holy luster. Even though it was blasted back, it dealt with this lethal move. This caused the mighty middle-aged man to frown and feel slight disbelief. 5 half-step kings had attacked together, yet they were unable to kill a young man at the Tao Insight realm in a short period of time. This was undoubtedly unbelievable. If news of this were to spread, probably no one would believe it. It wasn't just him. The other 4 half-step kings couldn't calm down as well, and the gazes they shot at Lin Sun had changed. What kind of freak was he? He was so young and only at the Tao Insight realm, yet he was able to persist until now while being besieged by 5 half-step kings. This was simply no different from defying the heavens. In the younger generation of the 4 great worlds of the ancient Desolation region, even if it was a peerless genius, unless he utilized a heaven-defying secret treasure, otherwise, it would probably be difficult for him to accomplish this. But now, such a young man had done it. This was undoubtedly too shocking, and once news of this were to spread, it would surely cause a great uproar and stir. Kill! The old man who held the painting shouted loudly. This kid must not be allowed to survive this time. Otherwise, not only will the young master be implicated, it might even cause our clan to face the threat of a peerless enemy in the future. Rumble! The old man's might grew even more terrifying, and the painting expanded into the heavens and the earth while the sun, moon, and stars circulated and produced a terrifying obliterating force. At the same time, the hearts of the other 4 half-step kings turned cold as they realized the severity of the problem. According to the terrifying reserves and strength this kid revealed now, there was no doubt that once he was allowed to grow, he would absolutely become a peerless enemy that defied the heavens. Kill! They were all ruthless and used their trump cards. For a moment, the divine light was dazzling, and the spiritual treasures soared into the sky, illuminating the whole world. The scene was appalling. However, at this moment, a cold light flashed in Lin Sun's black eyes, and he suddenly laughed loudly. "Do you still want to kill me now? It's too late." With a loud shout, Lin Sun's whole body produced a roar, and the rolling cyan divine light diffused and spread, making him look like a cyan sun, illuminating the world, mountains, and rivers. Inside his body, his essence, chi, and spirit were burning like smoke, reaching an unprecedented state of perfection. At this moment, the power of his spirit was as calm and clear as ice and snow. This was a kind of extreme power. At this moment, Lin Sun's power was greatly enhanced by the saint method of battle and the wrath of Yazi. The old man who held the painting was completely moved, and his pupils shrank. He didn't expect that at this time, this young man should suddenly burst out such a shocking power. Swish! The illusory and ethereal broken blade that was jade white like snow flashed out. Unlike before, strands of obscure and mysterious markings of the Tao actually seethed on the surface of the blade. That terrifying aura made even the heavens and earth dim and wail. The old man's expression changed again. He shouted, "Not good!" and did his best to resist. Whoosh! The painting of the sun, moon, and stars in his hand was like a piece of cloth. It was easily torn in half. Then, with a puff, the old man felt a chill on his neck, and his head was directly thrown into the air. He didn't even have time to react. That kind of power was too sharp. Even the elder's soul was destroyed at the same time, instantly obliterated. It was because the power of the Tao markings on the broken blade was too terrifying and incomparable, and it seemed as if there was nothing it couldn't destroy. All of this happened too quickly, and no one had imagined that merely a single slash would actually possess such divine might that shook the heavens and the earth. What was indestructible? That was it. Even half-step King Realm warriors couldn't block it, and they were caught off guard by the blade's edge. Chapter 834. Lin Sun's strike was too sharp. It was like a flash of lightning, and a half-step King Realm expert was killed on the spot. The moment Lin Sun appeared, the old man couldn't believe it. How could such a strike come from a young man at Tao Insight Realm? Unfortunately, he didn't have time to think. His soul was destroyed and he was killed on the spot. The death of the old man shocked the other 4 half-step King Realm experts, and they almost cried out. They couldn't imagine how such a scene could happen. What kind of strike was this? It seemed to be invincible, invincible, and invincible. Boom! The momentum of the broken blade didn't diminish. A crack was cut open in the void, and it spread straight to the front of a mountain. The mountain was directly flattened and collapsed. Then, the broken blade flashed lightly and returned to Lin Sun. At this time, Lin Sun's body was shining like the sun, making people unable to look at him directly. He was like a god. A broken blade as white as snow surrounded his body, shocking the soul and illuminating the mountains and rivers. Swish! Without hesitation, he operated the Battle Saint method and the fury of Yazi to the fullest. His whole body had a kind of power that could swallow the ages. He controlled the broken blade and rushed forward. "Hurry up! Let's attack together!" The middle-aged man roared and slashed out with the bloody spear in his hand. On the other side, the figure of the woman bathed in lightning flickered. She waved a lightning golden hammer, and she was fierce and tyrannical. With a swish, another thin man moved like a ghost. His eyes burst with blood light, and he took out a long and narrow awl and attacked Lin Sun silently. The man in a scholar's robe, who stood outside, also moved. Buzz! With a light flick of his slender fingers, a golden lamp in his palm rose up, and like a furnace of chaos, it poured out a terrifying torrent of golden flames and covered Lin Sun. The golden flames were like a sea, magnificent, and had an amazing power to incinerate. It burned the void to the point of collapse, and many black holes appeared. Blood spear, thunder hammer, sharp awl, golden lamp, exotic treasures and magical techniques poured out, causing this world to fall into a fierce battle. The sky was dark, and the earth was dark. Sand and stones were flying in the air, accompanied by the deafening sound of explosions. All of this vividly displayed the might of 4 half-step kings, and if it was any other cultivator, that cultivator would have probably been annihilated on the spot. However, unlike before, Lin Sun seemed to have become a completely different person. His entire body was suffused with Tao insight while divine radiance rumbled, and he was extremely powerful and arrogant. The broken blade flashed through the sky like an imposing bolt of lightning, like a divine ray of light that whistled through the sky, and it was extraordinarily swift and peerlessly sharp. Obscure markings of the Tao seethed on its surface, and it emanated a terrifying fluctuation that caused even gods and devils to tremble. It simply seemed capable of crushing gods and devils. This was the power of the king of the first realm, known as the most powerful way of cultivation. Lin soon used the saint method and the fury of Yazi to run it to an unprecedented extreme. It could even be said that this was the first time that Lin Sun had exerted his full strength without reservation. His blood was boiling and his fighting spirit was burning, which gave him a kind of absolute confidence and boldness to be fearless, as if he could sweep through the world. Bang! After a short moment, an awl exploded into pieces. The thin man cried out in alarm and dodged in panic, but his figure suddenly showed a trace of sluggishness. This was the might of the lower tyrant restriction, and it was capable of producing a shapeless and profound effect of confinement. In the past, it was utterly incapable of being effective against half-step kings. However, after it fused with the Tao inside of water, the lower tyrant restriction had undergone a transformation, and as soon as it was executed, it instantly caught the thin man off guard. Even if it merely caused the thin man's figure to show a trace of sluggishness, it was sufficient to be lethal in such an intense battle. Pooh! As expected, Lin soon seized this opportunity, and the broken blade flashed lightly before slashing the thin man into two at the waist. Blood flowed like a waterfall, and the thin man died on the spot amidst a shrill cry. Logically speaking, it was extremely difficult for half-step kings to be killed. Their soul cores had developed intelligence, and they were supported by the energy of the grand Tao they possessed. So long as their soul cores didn't perish, then they would have a chance to rise from the dead. But the strength of the broken blade was too terrifying. It was a peerless divine weapon, and the obscure energy of the Tao suffused it was capable of instantly annihilating one's soul core. In other words, so long as one was killed by the broken blade, then even a god would be unable to save that person, and it was bound to be impossible for that person to come back to life. Another half-step king had been killed. This bloody scene caused the expressions of the remaining 3 half-step kings to go pale, and they were shocked and furious to the extreme. No matter how they racked their brains, they were unable to imagine how such a strange and unbelievable thing could have occurred. Their hearts trembled and were unable to calm down, and their expressions became livid and gloomy. As they fought, they seemed to become even more violent and terrifying. But all of this seemed to be in vain. At this moment, Lin Sun was immersed in a form of tempering, and he was tempering the broken blade's completely new might. Along with him gradually fusing the Yuan character inheritance of the Tao marking formation diagram with the water Tao insight, the might of the broken blade rose step by step. The broken blade became even more dazzling to the point it seemed ethereal, and it revealed a world-shocking sharpness that was too dazzling to the point others were unable to look at it directly. On the other hand, obscure Tao markings surged and suffused its surface, and its might caused even Lin Sun himself to be shocked and surprised. Is this the true might of the broken blade? Lin Sun realized that all of this was surely related to the energy of the Tao insight he grasped. Perhaps it was precisely the energy of the Tao insight that awakened the true might of the broken blade. Bang! It wasn't long before the golden lightning hammer was directly shattered into pieces, and it transformed into a violent rain of light that sprayed down. On the other hand, the beautiful face of the woman with a delicate figure and an extremely ferocious and overbearing aura turned ghastly pale, and her figure staggered back while emitting a sharp cry. She finally felt panic and terror, and it caused all the hairs on her body to stand on end. It was too formidable. That broken blade was like a divine artifact in the hands of a god, and at that instant earlier, she almost thought she was going to die. Crack! However, before she could recover from her shock, she saw that the mighty man and the blood-red spear in his hand had been instantly slashed into two. Before he died, the mighty man still maintained a charging posture with his eyes wide open with rage. But in the end, his figure transformed into a rain of blood that crashed to the ground along with the broken spear. He's dead. An indescribable coldness surged out from the depths of her heart and suffused her entire body, causing the woman to feel as if she'd fallen into an icy pit and her soul almost left her body. Swoosh. She didn't hesitate in the slightest to turn around and flee as if she'd gone mad. The scenes from before seemed to be so inconceivable and unreal, and it was too bloody and terrifying. It caused a half-step king realm like her to feel terrified and uneasy. She was unable to imagine exactly what sort of terrifying reserves that young man possessed to be able to seem so heaven-defying and world-shocking. She was similarly unable to imagine exactly what sort of treasure that dazzling to the point of seeming illusory broken blade was to be able to possess such invincible might. All she knew was, if she didn't flee now, then she wouldn't have another chance. Going? You actually abandoned me and fled? The furious roar of the man who held the golden lamp sounded out from behind her, and it carried extreme disappointment. The woman called Going gritted her teeth and didn't speak. She was fleeing because if she stayed, then she would definitely die. Since it was like that, then why didn't she flee? Bang! When she fled an entire 500 kilometers away, Going suddenly heard a terrifying rumbling sound coming from extremely far away. She swiftly turned around and spread out her divine sense, and she instantly noticed that in the distant battlefield, golden flames were raining down like a rain of light, and they covered the heavens and the earth. It was a magnificent and gorgeous scene. However, the figure of the man in scholar's robe was nowhere to be seen. He's dead. Going felt bitter and sorrowful in her heart. She was unable to imagine that when all 5 of them half-step kings had set out together for the sake of dealing with a young man at the Paradise Realm, they would suffer such an outcome. At the same time, she couldn't help but feel fortunate in her heart. If she hadn't fled quickly, then she would have probably suffered calamity as well, and it would be no different than being completely annihilated. Go Ying's entire body shivered, and she noticed that the handsome young man was looking towards her from afar with her divine sense. His figure was handsome, his clothes fluttered in the wind, and his black hair was suffused with a bright sheen. As he stood in the sky that was covered in golden flames, it caused his figure to flicker and be enveloped in a wisp of a mysterious and terrifying aura. He was like a fiend god that commanded the world during the primordial times. Even though they were 500 kilometers apart, Going seemed to have noticed that pair of eyes that were deep like an abyss had already locked onto her from afar, and those eyes were filled with piercingly cold and emotionless. Flee. Going seemed as if she'd suffered extreme terror, and she didn't dare hesitate any longer before turning around and fleeing. A dignified half-step king from the Black Nightmare Tengu clan had been terrified to such an extent from 500 kilometers away. If news of this were to spread, it would surely cause a mighty uproar in the Westing world. You're lucky to have fled quickly. Amidst the golden flames that covered the sky, Lin Sun, who stood upright in the sky, withdrew his gaze. He didn't pursue Going, and his figure flashed before he started to clean up the battlefield. In merely a short moment, he'd floated away with 4 storage treasures and an ancient golden lamp, and he vanished under the boundless veil of night. The battlefield recovered its calm. However, the ground was covered in smoke and a mess. The ground was split open, the mountains and rivers that had collapsed, the vegetation that had been destroyed, and the living beings that had died miserably and been reduced to ashes. Everything seemed to be telling the story of how terrifying and earth-shattering that duel had been. Judging from the time, there should be news by now. In the gorge, Go Shushing frowned. He was slightly anxious and uneasy in his heart, but his expression was still calm and steady. Shushing, it's just a waste of time to delay any longer. We don't have too much energy to wait here. Go Yangbua spoke indifferently, and he was a little dissatisfied. If we had attacked from the very beginning, that brat would have been killed long ago. Why do we have to keep waiting here? Go Yangtong also snorted coldly. Go Shushing was furious. He knew that these 2 old guys had no good intentions, and they couldn't wait to see him lose so that they could hit him when he was down, and make him completely unable to raise his head in the clan. Let's wait a little longer. Go Shushing didn't bother to cover up, and his tone was firm. He wasn't afraid that these two old guys would dare to do anything to him. Go Yangbua and Go Yangtong frowned when they saw this, but in the end, they chuckled and said no more. They didn't want to push Go Shushing too hard. "Young master, it's bad." Suddenly, a bitter and dejected voice came from afar. Go Ying's figure appeared along with the voice. Her pretty face was pale, and her eyes were filled with guilt and unwillingness. She actually didn't dare to look Go Shushing in the eyes. Immediately, Go Shushing's expression changed drastically. He suppressed the panic in his heart and said, "What happened? Why are you the only one who returned? Where are the others?" "They're all dead." Going lowered her head and spat out the words with difficulty. However, these 3 words were like a bolt from the blue. It made Go Shushing's body stiffen, and he was completely stunned. "They're all dead?" Chapter 835. Go Shushing was completely out of control. His face was cloudy, and his chest was heaving up and down. There was no trace of calmness left. 5 half-step kings attacked, but only one escaped in panic, and the other 4 were all killed. Go Shushing could not accept this at all. Last time, he failed because of a one-horned golden-eyed beast king. What about this time? Could it be that the boy asked another king realm creature to help him? Soon, Going told the whole story of the previous battle, and showed that Lin Sun was not as simple as a peerless talent. His fighting capacity, the secret methods and treasures he used, were all horrifying and heaven-defying, and could not be measured by common sense. That's it. When Go Shushing learned the truth, he felt like he was about to collapse. He felt it was too absurd. A young man in Tao Insight Realm, under the siege of 5 half-step kings, not only was he not killed, but he also won the battle. Who would believe this if it was spread out? Originally, Go Yangbua and Go Yangtong were very happy, and they were happy to see Go Shushing suffer a setback. But when they heard Go Ying's analysis of Lin Sun's battle, their faces suddenly became serious, and their eyes flickered. This boy must have set foot on the peerless Tao, and the secret methods he mastered must be extremely shocking. Go Yangbua said in a low voice, "But if that's all, he can't cross a big realm to kill a half-step king realm." "Yes, the most important thing should be the treasure he used," Go Yangtong also said, and his turbid eyes were filled with a terrifying divine light. "In terms of current treasures, even if it's the Imperial Way armament, it's definitely impossible for it to kill a half-step king in a single move. Based on this treasure is definitely—" Speaking of this, Go Yangbua and Go Yangtong's eyelids twitched, and they said at the same time, "Saint Treasure." As soon as this was said, Go Shushing and Go Ying's expressions changed, and they could not calm down. Saint Treasure? Just the meaning of these 2 words was enough to make one feel suffocated. Because such a treasure possessed unimaginably terrifying might. According to legend, merely the aura of a true saint treasure was capable of suppressing kings to the point they couldn't even raise their heads. Go Yangbua frowned and said, "No, it may also be a peerless divine weapon. But, if so, it is even rarer than a saint treasure." Divine weapons were rare, made with real divine materials, and could only be seen in ancient times. In today's world, it was almost impossible for a real king to have such a treasure. The power of a divine weapon might not be as terrible as a saint treasure, but it was even more rare. Saint treasures. After all, divine weapon was just a general term that referred to secret treasures and divine treasures that could be controlled by the divine control technique. There was no of any doubt that this young man had had great luck Tao before. A treasured vessel that's suspected to be an incomplete saint artifact, a broken blade that's suspected to be a peerless divine weapon. Moreover, this kid's resources and reserves are so terrifying, and it's extremely likely that he's stepped foot onto the path of the ultimate abyss path. There's utterly no need to doubt that this kid has surely obtained great fortune in the past. Of Goxing. And go and down of goof schnes of and goof go. And it's time for us to take action. Go Yangbua stood up slowly and said softly, Let's go. Without the slightest hesitation, the two monarchs disappeared into thin air with a flash. From beginning to end, they didn't ask Go Shushing's opinion at all, which was equivalent to ignoring him. Obviously, from the moment they were sure that Lin had a great luck, Lin's existence had successfully aroused their interest. More importantly, even as kings, they also had an extreme desire for saint treasures. Go Shushing's face suddenly became extremely ugly, and he was so angry that his teeth almost broke. He knew that from the moment the two old guys took action, he had no chance to atone for his mistake. What was waiting for him was bound to be severe punishment from the clan, and countless attacks and trampling on him when he was down. Maybe it would be hard for him to raise his head again in this life. How could this be? Why, the more Go Shushing thought about it, the more unwilling he was. He was on the verge of collapse and lost his soul. Young lord, maybe the situation is not as pessimistic as you think. Even if the two old guys take action, who can guarantee that they won't fail? Going suddenly said, which stunned Go Shushing. Think about it. If the two old guys also fail, no matter how serious the consequences are, you can't be blamed for it. After all, even kings can't do anything to that boy, let alone you. Go Ying's words seemed to have magic power, which made Go Shushing, who was originally depressed and anxious, suddenly recover a trace of calmness. You mean, the two old guys may also fail? Go Shushing hesitated. No one can guarantee it before the result is out. Go Ying's eyes flickered. But don't forget, last time Lord Go Shu personally took action, didn't he? Before he finished his words, his meaning was clear. Go Shushing completely calmed down, but he still felt desperate in his heart. Go Shu was seriously injured by the single-horned golden-eyed beast king, so he suffered a disaster. But this time, there were two old monsters of King Realm attacking together. How could that boy have a chance to survive? It was sad to say that at this moment, Go Shushing actually didn't want Lin Sun to die. But in order to keep his position in the clan, he couldn't help thinking otherwise. This contradictory mood was like poison, tormenting his heart. I hope so. After a long time, Go Shushing sighed deeply. In the night, his expression was gloomy, which made him look a little creepy. Come out. In the night, the mountains rose and fell. Lin Sun, who was flying stealthily, suddenly stopped and looked into the distance with his eyes like lightning. If you don't show up, don't blame me for killing you. Lin Sun raised the corner of his mouth. Calm down, child, calm down. Suddenly, a figure rushed out from under the dark mountain, sweating profusely and bowing repeatedly. I'm Bai Fenglu of the Wind Talker clan. I've been waiting here just to ask you something. This was an old man with a thin figure, dark skin, and a simple and honest appearance. In fact, he was a great practitioner of reincarnation developing realm. His eyes shone inadvertently, which made Lin Sun realize that this old guy was not as simple and honest as he looked. Lin Sun replied with a faint smile, What do you want to ask? Bai Fenglu? This name really didn't live up to its name. Bai Fenglu laughed dryly and approached Lin Sun, saying, Child, now you are famous and famous. You have become one of the most popular figures in the younger generation. These days, many cities have been promoting your prestige. Cut the crap. Let's get down to business, Lin Sun interrupted him bluntly. Bai Fenglu smiled embarrassedly and said, Well, it's very simple. I'm from the Wind Talker clan. I just want to know some of the grievances between you and the Black Sea Dog clan, and also the situation of the battle between you and the Black Sea Dog clan. Lin Sun was speechless for a while. This old guy came to the wild alone just to inquire about these things? This made Lin Sun admire him a little. This clan deserved to be the most well-informed clan in the ancient Desolation realm. Once they inquired about something, they would run away faster than anyone else. However, although Lin Sun admired him, he was not in the mood to accept the old guy's interview. He refused directly and turned to leave. What a joke! He was being hunted now. How could he reveal any information about himself? Bai Fenglu was dumbfounded by Lin Sun's refusal. After a while, he murmured, "When other young talents hear that the Wind Talker clan is inquiring about them, they can't wait to tell us all the proudest things in their lives so that we can spread their fame. But this guy doesn't care about it at all." How unreasonable! Although he was a little dissatisfied, Bai Fenglu had to cheer up and try his best to inquire about Lin Sun. During this period of time, the news about the battle between demon god Lin and the Black Sea Dog clan was widely spread in more than a dozen states of the West Hing realm. Moreover, this news was extremely sensational and caused a great disturbance. Until now, it was still spreading at an astonishing speed to the other states of the West Hing realm. After all, among the younger generation, Demon God Lin was definitely the first outstanding talent who dared to challenge the Black Sea Dog clan. Moreover, his bloody battle record proved that he was not just boasting. In particular, his phrase, "slaughter all the Black Sea Dogs in the world," became a hot topic of discussion among countless practitioners. Now, many practitioners knew that after Demon God Lin left Snow Maple City, he was hunted by the strong practitioners sent by the Black Sea Dog clan. This also made those practitioners pay close attention to this matter. They were all speculating whether Demon God Lin would encounter a calamity this time and whether he could kill his way out and leave. And the Wind Talker clan, which had always been responsible for spreading news around the world, naturally could not ignore this matter. They sent out a large number of spies to conduct a comprehensive investigation. Bai Fenglu was one of the most senior spies. He was rich in experience and had the reputation of 100 wise men. Alas, what a pity! I've waited so long for this kid, but he just has to refuse to cooperate. Looks like I can only investigate on my own. Bai Fenglu sighed, then pulled himself together and searched along the path Lin Sun came from. He did not chase after Lin Sun. This was the experience he had developed over the years. His intuition told him that Lin Sun must have experienced many bloody battles along the way. Since there were battles, there must be battlefields left behind. Lin Sun might not be willing to reveal these, but as long as he found the battlefields, he would be able to find out the actual situation of the battle. Sure enough, it did not take long for Bai Fenglu to find a battlefield that was full of devastation. However, at the instant he saw the battlefield, even with his years of experience and vast experience, he still couldn't help but stiffen and gasp. Chapter 836. The battlefield covered thousands of miles. Mountains and rivers had collapsed, the ground had cracked, and the plants had turned into ashes. It was a scene of desolation. As an experienced spy from the Wind Whisperer race, Bai Fenglu immediately realized that a shocking bloody battle had taken place here. Although you don't want to leak the news, I am not someone to be trifled with. This battlefield in front of us has big news about you. Bai Fenglu smiled. When he thought that he was about to discover a piece of shocking news, his heart couldn't help but beat violently. He couldn't suppress his excitement. Swoosh! Without hesitation, his figure flashed and he started to explore the battlefield. At this moment, Bai Fenglu seemed serious and focused. He was meticulous and even had a sense of piety. Other cultivators might be good at fighting, crafting, alchemy, taming beasts, spiritual plants, but for the Wind Whisperer race, discovering and spreading news was a natural ability they had. Very soon, Bai Fenglu discovered many clues about this battle. However, as he discovered more and more clues, he could no longer remain calm and collected. Oh my God! There are 5 different auras belonging to half-step king tiers. Doesn't this mean that there were 5 half-step king tiers fighting at the same time? The battlefield covered thousands of miles. Mountains collapsed and the ground exploded. I can be sure that this battle was extremely intense and lasted for a while. F***CK. 5 half-step king tiers fighting at the same time couldn't kill that kid? This is going against the heavens. It's a fragment of an Emperor Path treasure. The broken blood-colored spear, the torn picture scroll, the shattered remains of the giant hammer. They were all destroyed? No, no, I can only find the broken bones of 4 half-step king tiers. This should prove that 1 half-step king tier escaped. Under the night sky, an old man who was as thin as a bamboo jumped around in the battlefield like a mouse, shouting and yelling. It looked very strange and funny. However, Bai Fenglu was completely unaware of it. At this moment, his expression kept changing, and his heart was filled with more and more shock. He was almost unable to control his emotions. After a long time, he stood still and let out a long breath of foul air before he muttered in a slightly dazed manner. If I fucking spread the news of this battle, then everyone in the world would definitely think that I've gone mad. Damn it! This is too unbelievable. After a long time, Bai Fenglu finally regained some of his composure. He had already decided that whether the world believed him or not, he would spread the news. This was the professional integrity of a descendant of the Wind Whisperer clan. However, how should we spread this news so that it will be more convincing? Bai Fenglu fell into deep thought. Finally, he gritted his teeth and took out a golden leaf that looked like a fan. This was a leaf from the golden messenger tree. It was extremely precious and rare. Even in the Wind Whisperer race, only a small portion of them had it. Under normal circumstances, one would only choose to use the leaves of the golden message tree to inscribe information unless it was an extremely sensational event. Damn it! I'm going all out. Success or failure depends on this. When this news shakes the Westheng realm, I can legitimately ask the clan for more leaves from the golden messenger tree. Bai Fenglu gritted his teeth and made a decision. The next moment, he began to use a magical technique. The golden leaf shone brilliantly and flowed out of the light screen. It began to inscribe some clues and details of this battlefield. In Bai Fenglu's opinion, this was the only way to prove that the news he spread was not fake. Only then could he make the world believe that this extremely unbelievable and shocking battle had taken place. After doing all this, Bai Fenglu felt invigorated and was filled with infinite longing. He could already foresee that when he spread this news, it was destined to set off a huge commotion in the Westheng realm. A young demon god at the Tao Insight realm had fought against 5 half-step king tiers of the Black Sea Tengu race alone. In the end, he killed 4 of them in a nature-defying manner, and the last one escaped. Among all the peerless geniuses of the younger generation in the Westheng realm, who could do this? All of a sudden, Bai Fenglu, who was immersed in his wild imagination, froze. An extreme sense of danger emerged in his heart, making his hair stand on end. Then, he saw 2 elders in black robes walking in the air extremely far away. Life and death realm. Bai Fenglu's entire body was covered in cold sweat. He was terrified to the extreme. All these years, he had traveled all over the world, and his eyes were already extremely sharp. With one look, he could tell that they were 2 king-tier old monsters from the Black Sea Tengu race. Oh no, when Bai Fenglu thought about how the news he was about to spread might have an extremely negative impact on the Black Sea Tengu race, he had a feeling that he was going to die. Humph! It's those damned flies again. They're everywhere. In the air, Go Yangtong let out a cold snort. His voice was like a clap of thunder, making Bai Fenglu shiver and fall to the ground. However, just when Bai Fenglu thought that he was going to die, he heard an indifferent voice. "Do me a favor, and I will spare your life." It was Go Yangbua's voice. Bai Fenglu was startled, but he quickly nodded. "Senior, please give me your orders. Spread the news that anyone who dares to slander the Black Sea Tengu race will pay with their lives." With that, Go Yangbua and Go Yangtong walked in the air together, disappearing without a trace in an instant. Bai Fenglu sucked in a breath of cold air, his expression changing drastically. Did this mean that these 2 king-tier old monsters were going to kill Demon God Lin together? However, the next moment, he laughed out loud, his eyebrows dancing. "Oh my God! You're too good to me. To be able to witness such a big news, I won't have to worry about not being able to rise in the clan in the future. The more he thought about it, the more excited he became. He almost danced with joy. At dawn, Baifenglu left the wilderness at full speed and returned to a city in the Westheng region. On the same day, Baifenglu hung the golden message tree leaf on the main trunk of the ancient message tree in the city. Boom! Something miraculous happened. In the thousands of continents and tens of thousands of cities in the Westheng region, every message tree produced a fluctuation, and a golden leaf shadow appeared on its main trunk. In an instant, countless cultivators in the entire Westheng region were attracted to it, fighting to see it. This was because they all knew that once the golden message tree leaf of the Wind Whisperer clan appeared, it meant that something extremely important had happened. The news has already been spread. I'll just laugh and watch the world change. As for the instigator of the incident, Baifenglu, he could not help but laugh the moment the news was sent out. Treasure Eagle Region, Green Water City. In front of the message tree, there was a huge crowd of cultivators. From time to time, exclamations would erupt, and everyone's face was filled with shock. Fong Linhan stood there. His handsome face, which usually carried a demonic and wild aura, had a gloomy and uncertain expression on it. After a long while, he grumbled indignantly, "Brother Lin, oh, Brother Lin, to think that I treated you as a friend. You never told me that you're actually Fiend God Lin." Soon after, he couldn't help but reveal a strange expression. "Everyone says that I, Fong Linhan, am boundlessly arrogant and courageous, but compared to you, I'm nothing. At least I'm not as arrogant and perverted as you." In the distance, more and more cultivators were coming, which looked spectacular. Seeing this, Fong Linhan's expression became rare and serious. He realized that the news sent by the Wind Whisperer clan was no different from piercing the sky, which suddenly pushed Lin to the top of the limelight. "You must resist it. If you don't participate in the Tao Discussion Lantern Festival, it is destined to lose a lot of colors," Fong Linhan murmured. Floating Tooth Region, Billow Light City. Yu Jiaming was drinking. He was handsome, with sword-like eyebrows and starry eyes, with a kind of gentle and dignified temperament, which was quite eye-catching. However, he didn't pay attention to this. He was thinking about going to Kangwu Mountain to participate in the Tao Discussion Lantern Festival. Suddenly, a great uproar sounded, which attracted Yu Jiaming's attention. "Big news! The golden leaf of the Wind Whisperer clan has appeared again. It is said that it is related to a young demon named Lin Sun." Suddenly, countless cultivators rushed to the center of the city. The escape lights were like rain, dazzling and extremely spectacular. Lin Sun? It couldn't be him, right? Yu Jiaming's heart moved, and he floated up. In front of the message tree in the city, Yu Jiaming stood for a long time, and his heart was shaken and couldn't calm down for a long time. It was really him. But what Yu Jiaming couldn't imagine was that the young man he met by chance in Purple Ox Mountain had now possessed such power. Demon Lin. What a good Demon Lin. I didn't misjudge him at that time, but this surprise is a little too big. Yu Jiaming's heart was filled with emotion. "I have given you the token to participate in the Tao Discussion Lantern Festival, and it depends on whether you will come or not." Tang Province, Chang and City. This was the core area of the Western Heng region, and Chang'an City was taken to be the holy city of cultivation in the Western Heng region, because an entire 3 ancient sects stood towering nearby this city. Amongst them was the profound Sage Sword School that was said to be the #1 sect in the Western Heng region. A chilly and pleasing voice sounded out from an inconspicuous azure treasured carriage. What happened outside? Why is it so clamorous? The person driving the treasured carriage was an azure-clothed old woman. She listened briefly when she heard this before she answered. "A gold rank leaf has appeared on the message tree in the city, and it ought to be because something extremely important has occurred. Let's go take a look." "All right. It wasn't long before the azure-treasured carriage stopped before the message tree, and then a woman in a black dress with a graceful figure and a veil walked out from within it. Why is it him? Chapter 837. A free, 83 Chinese net. Chapter 838. At this moment, the old woman's expression was rather strange as well. She'd recognized Demon God Lin as well. He was the young man who'd fought the young miss at the Pine Mist Martial Arena in Flame Capital. However, she'd never imagined that in less than 2 months, this young man's reputation had already spread to Chang'an City. Chang'an City was the holy city of cultivation in the West Ocean region, and it received the attention of countless cultivators in the thousands of states of the West Ocean region. As expected, Jean Lin isn't an ordinary person, and he transforms into a dragon upon encountering a storm. The old woman sighed with emotion in her heart. That day when she saw this young man was able to go against the young miss, the old woman knew that this kid was bound to rise up in the world and become renowned. But this speed of his rise was really too fast. Demon God Lin. Ha! Demon God Lin. Ha! The nearby young woman in a black dress let out a cold laugh that seemed to be ridiculing, hating, and extremely disgruntled. Even if it was a cold laugh, the sound was pleasant like the sound of nature. The old woman's expression became even more strange. She understood the young miss's current state of mind very well. It was that kid's fault for being too rash and actually disrespecting the young miss's private parts in battle, causing the young miss to completely remember him. It was truly difficult to determine if it was fortune or misfortune. Young miss, this kid is extraordinary. I was still able to kill my way out while being surrounded by 5 half-step kings. It's truly inconceivable, said the old woman. Humph. Based on the traces left behind in the battle, it can only prove that this bastard relied on an extremely formidable treasure to win. If it wasn't for that, it would be utterly impossible for him to go against 5 half-step kings with his true strength. The young woman in a black dress grunted lightly and was indifferent. Perhaps others wouldn't be able to discern anything, but as a peak figure of the younger generation, she naturally discerned the crux of the battle with a single glance. The old woman nodded and said, "Young miss is right. There are some destroyed King Dao treasures left on the battlefield. If nothing unexpected happens, this kid probably possesses a treasure comparable to a saint artifact. Only in this way was he able to kill 4 half-step kings in a domineering manner." She paused for a moment and continued. "However, the more it's like this, the more it proves that this kid's resources and reserves are formidable. Not only does his cultivation possess extraordinary strength, he's probably a young man that possesses great karmic luck." The young woman in a black dress seemed to be slightly displeased and said angrily, "Is an extremely despicable bastard worth such praise? Demon God Lin? I think he should be called Shameless Lin." After saying that, she turned around and left. It seemed that if she took another look, she would be unable to control the anger in her heart. The azure-clothed old woman felt helpless. She had originally wanted to test the young miss and resolve the grudge in her heart. She had even wanted to find an opportunity to recruit that youth into their orthodoxy. After all, a young man like this was definitely a superb seedling that the various ancient sects would fight to rope in. But now it would seem like it was obviously impossible. Suddenly, the green-clothed old woman had a flash of inspiration, and she said, "Young miss, according to the information, this kid is being pursued by 2 old geezers at the King Realm from the Black Sea Tengu clan. What do you think? What does that have to do with me? It's better if he's dead." The girl in the black dress didn't even look back as she boarded the green treasure carriage. The green-clothed old woman sighed in her heart. What a pity for such a peerless youth, however. You can pay close attention to this matter. I want to know exactly how he'll die. The voice of the young woman in a black dress sounded out from within the treasured carriage. The old woman was stunned and couldn't help but ask, "Young miss, if he doesn't die this time, will you?" "Impossible. The young woman in a black dress seemed to understand what the old woman wanted to say, and she directly interrupted her. Even if he's lucky enough to survive, I'll crush him myself. The green-clothed old woman grinned when she heard this. She knew that the young miss wasn't willing to see that youth be killed by the Black Sea Tengu clan in the depths of her heart. That was enough. Tahan Prefecture, Ink Cloud City. This kid should be treated as our greatest enemy. The fifth prince of the Flamecrow clan, Lu Jioga, had a solemn expression as divine light surged within his eyes, and it was extremely terrifying. Exactly. He's the same type of person as us. Not only does his cultivation surpass his peers, he even possesses a secret treasure that's sufficient to kill half-step King Realm experts. If a conflict arises in the future, then we'll naturally treat him as our greatest enemy. At the side, Zhuoquanglan's gaze was sharp like a sword, and his entire body emanated a fierce, imposing aura. They'd met Lin Sun a long time ago in Snow Maple City, and they'd personally witnessed how he'd killed those experts of the Black Sea Tengu clan. It was also at that time that they'd acknowledged Lin Sun, and they'd viewed him as an existence of the same type. However, in the depths of their hearts, they had someone to rely on, so even though they valued Lin Sun, they weren't really afraid of him. But now, their attitudes had changed because they'd noticed that they weren't the only ones who possessed heaven-defying weapons. This demon god Lin had them as well. I'm really curious how a fellow from the lower worlds could possess such a strong foundation. As long as he doesn't die in this pursuit, then I'll personally test him one day. Lu Jioga's eyes were suffused with a dazzling light that burned like a dazzling flame. Sha Yutong, who stood at the side, had mixed feelings when he heard them talking about demon god Lin. He was filled with resentment, shock, and dissatisfaction. He was also from the lower worlds, and he was even from a high-class clan. But now, in terms of power and reputation, he couldn't even compare to Lin Sun. This was unacceptable to him. Let's go. The Azure Parasol Mountain isn't far away. We'll arrive there in half a month at most. I'd really like to see exactly how many geniuses, saints, and saintesses will appear this time. Lu Jioga said. Brother Lu, do you think this demon god Lin will die this time? Zhuoquanglan asked. They turned around and walked into the distance. Unless there's a heaven-defying figure to save him, he'll definitely die. Even if he has a true saint treasure, he won't be able to turn the situation around if two king realms attack together. Lu Jioga said casually. Zhuoquanglan sighed softly. It seems that this lad has no chance to participate in the Dao Discussion Lantern Festival. It's really a pity, in his opinion. Lin Sun was from the lower worlds and a loner in the ancient Desolation Realm. It was impossible for anyone to save him. After all, it was the Black Sky Dog clan that was hunting him down. Even if the ancient Orthodoxy saved him, they had to consider the risk of clashing with the Black Sky Dog clan. Hearing this conversation, Sha Yutong inexplicably felt a lot better. He even felt a little happy about Lin Sun's misfortune. This made his expression change slightly. He realized that the inner demon that Lin Sun brought to him was getting deeper and deeper. On this day, not only Fong Linhan, Yu Jianming, the girl in the black dress, Lu Jioga, Zhuoquanglan, and Sha Yutong paid attention to the news about Lin Sun. Countless practitioners in thousands of states and tens of thousands of cities in the West Hing domain also learned about it. Demon Lin, a young man who rose from the fire spirit state, had completely entered the vision of the entire West Hing domain. Countless forces and practitioners realized that there was another peerless figure in the younger generation. Of course, there were exclamations, uproars, and shocked voices. There were also disdainful and pessimistic voices. Demon Lin? He's clearly an arrogant young man who doesn't know what's good for him. He even dared to say that he would slaughter all the black sky dogs in the world. Now he's being hunted down by two king realms. He won't die if he doesn't court death. How can a young man like him offend the Black Sky Dog clan? He must be tired of living. Just wait and see. It won't be long before the news of Demon Lin's death spreads. That's the price of arrogance. In particular, some strong practitioners from the Black Sky Dog clan even uttered arrogant words. Those who dare to slander our clan must be killed just like Lin Sun. Stand out if you're not convinced. Many practitioners who supported Lin Sun were furious. These Black Sky Dogs were too arrogant. Were they threatening the whole world? What's more, Lin Sun was still alive. There were also many practitioners who were worried about Lin Sun, thinking that he had no hope of survival after being hunted down by 2 king realms of the Black Sky Dog clan. It could be said that Lin Sun's life and death had attracted the attention of the entire West Hing domain and affected the hearts of countless practitioners. At this moment, Bai Fenglu, who was the first to release news about Lin Sun, stood out and released another gold-level news. Our clan will pay full attention to Demon Lin's life and death and announce it as soon as possible. Bai Fenglu was very proud. As a spy of the Wind Whisperer clan, he was able to see his news set off such a storm in the entire West Hing domain. This made him feel an unprecedented sense of satisfaction and pride. Moreover, because he released the news about Lin Sun, he won the favor and commendation of countless big shots in the clan. His status in the clan also rose, and he was in the limelight. No one could match his coquettishness. In the ancient times, there was a senior in my clan who was crowned as the King of News. His name was well known throughout the ages. Today, I, Bai Fenglu, will also take this as my goal and strive to ascend to the throne of the King of News as soon as possible. Bai Fenglu was full of ambition and lofty sentiments. While the outside world was in an uproar, Lin Sun, who was pursued and supported by countless practitioners, was running for his life. In the evening, the setting sun was like blood. In the vast mountains, a treasure ship was like a streamer in the void of the universe. It flashed and disappeared at an incredible speed. Behind it, 2 black shadows with terrifying power were chasing after it. Every step they took covered a distance of thousands of feet, as if they were moving in the void. Their speed was also extremely fast. Rumble! Until their figures disappeared, there was a deafening sound of something tearing through the air. An extremely narrow and long rift split open in space, and the sound waves spread out and shook the mountains and rivers to the point of trembling. The beasts that lay dormant within the rift were astounded and dazed, and they didn't know what had happened. One could imagine just how fast they were chasing after him. Puff! In the vast universe arc, Lin Sun suddenly coughed up a mouthful of blood, and his face was a little pale. He cursed angrily. Without any delay, he immediately took out the golden marrow jade liquid to replenish and repair his injuries. P.S. Make up for it tonight. Chapter 839. That night, Lin Sun killed 4 half-step King Realm experts in a row and then flew away. It seemed that he had won beautifully, but in fact, he had consumed a lot of energy. However, before he could recover his strength, he was chased by Go Yangbua and Go Yangtong, 2 old monsters of the King Realm, so he immediately fled. The vast universe arc was driven to the extreme by him. Fortunately, although this damaged holy treasure consumed a huge amount of spiritual marrow, it was a first-class weapon for escaping. Along the way, it was precisely by relying on the vast universe arc that Lin Sun had avoided countless fatal attacks. It could absolutely be said that he had narrowly escaped death. However, although he was lucky to escape until now, Lin Sun had suffered heavy injuries. The qi in his body was in disorder, and there were faint signs of collapse. This was the terror of the old monsters of the King Realm. Although they couldn't kill Lin Sun in a short time, every time they attacked, they brought great damage to Lin Sun. If not for the vast universe arc's defense, he would have died many times. At this moment, Lin Sun was bleeding all over, and his skin showed signs of cracking. His face was pale, and there were still traces of blood at the corner of his mouth. He looked very miserable. It was also by relying on the help of the golden marrow jade liquid that he had persisted until now, and still had the strength and capital to escape. Swish! The vast universe arc was extremely fast, flying above the boundless sky. Lin Sun was going all out, not daring to relax for a moment. To him, ever since he started cultivating, he had never been in such a miserable state. His body was practically in tatters. Boom! Terrifying fluctuations descended again, fiercely suppressing him. Although Lin Sun controlled the vast universe arc to dodge, he was still affected. The entire treasure ship seemed to be smashed by a divine mountain, emitting a deafening roar. Lin Sun violently coughed out a mouthful of blood, and his vision darkened. His body was bleeding inch by inch, and he didn't know how many bones were broken. He almost fainted. Gulp, gulp, he picked up the golden marrow jade liquid in the jade bottle, and then gritted his teeth. Like a madman, he drove the vast universe arc with all his strength, and the speed was much faster than before. From last night until now, more than 20 hours had passed, and Lin Sun didn't know how far he had escaped. However, at this moment, he was exceptionally aware that he couldn't hold on any longer. Fight! Lin Sun tried to keep himself awake, no longer caring about his injuries, and operated all his strength to the limit. Boom! The heavenly passage within his body rumbled. A simple and ancient Tao platform released intense buzzing sound. Divine radiance surged, and its aura immediately rose greatly. However, on his body, the cracked skin burst out inch by inch, and his injuries became even more serious. But Lin Sun couldn't care less about this at the moment. If he didn't change, it wouldn't be long before he completely collapsed. At that time, the enemy wouldn't even need to do anything. He would be finished first. Crash! A billowing dreamlike mist spread out from Lin Sun's body, covering the entire vast universe. Arkansas sigh. Suddenly, Go Yangbu's pupils shrank. Within the range of his divine sense, he had actually lost all traces and aura of the vast universe Arkansas. He was no longer able to lock onto it. It was as if he had evaporated into thin air. What happened? On the other side, Go Yangtong's heart shook, and he was slightly taken by surprise. Whoosh! A moment later, the two old King Realm monsters appeared in the void where the vast universe arc had first vanished. They carefully sensed their surroundings. But in the end, he came up empty-handed. This caused their expressions to turn gloomy. They'd been pursuing Lin Sun since last night, yet they'd actually been unable to succeed until now. This caused them to feel slightly embarrassed. As existences at the King Realm, not to mention killing a youth at the Heavenly Passage Realm, even killing a half-step King Realm expert was no different than slaughtering a chicken. Yet now, two of them had set out together, yet they were unable to kill Lin Sun in a short period of time. If news of this were to spread, then what would the people of the world think of them? Originally, it seemed to be extremely disgraceful for them to kill Lin Sun with their identities. Now that they'd encountered such a situation, it caused their hearts to burn with rage, and they felt they'd lost all face. We can conclude that the treasured vessel that kid possesses is definitely a Saint Tao treasure. Go Yangtong's gaze burned, and it carried a wisp of admiration and greed. There's definitely more than just a single treasure in his possession. Once we kill him, we'll just divide up the fortune in his possession. Go Yangbu took a deep breath with a ghastly expression. The urgent matter at hand is to find this kid's tracks as soon as possible. We absolutely can't allow him to escape. Swoosh! The two old monsters at the King Realm attacked once more and carried out the search. At this moment, Lin Sun seemed to be burning himself. Although his breath was strong, his physical condition was getting worse. Originally, according to his plan, after comprehending the Tao of Water, he began to prepare for breaking through to the reincarnation developing realm. But the sudden pursuit disrupted all his arrangements, and even brought him to the verge of death. Plop! A quarter of an hour later, Lin Sun couldn't hold on any longer. He reluctantly put away the vast universe arc and then flew down. He staggered into the depths of a cave, and finally lay down with a plop. He tried to keep himself awake, repair his injuries, and strengthen himself. But his consciousness became blurred. This battle made him too tired and exhausted his foundation. His body was extremely broken, and he was in a state of exhaustion. I can't sleep. Xia Ji and Old Toad are still meditating in the wordless pagoda and haven't woken up yet. And Xia Xiaochong and I'll go to find Yun Qi Bai for revenge, and I'll seek the way of Tao, on Heart-Cleansing Peak. They're also waiting for me to return, and Lin Sun murmured in his heart, reminding himself over and over again. He knew that once he fell asleep, he might never wake up again. So, he couldn't sleep. But what if I don't sleep? In my current state, I can't recover in a short time. And it won't take long for the two old dogs to catch up with me. The outcome seems to be doomed and can't be changed. No! I must live. If Master Lu knew that I would accept my fate, how could he save me at the beginning? If Zhao Tailai, the old fox, knew that I gave up, would he laugh at me for going to the bloodthirsty battlefield in vain? Yes, in the bloodthirsty battlefield, I've long been accustomed to life and death and understood the meaning of life. At this moment, how can I give up easily? What's more, if I die, how can I slaughter all the black demonic dogs in the world? Live. No matter what. Lin Sun endured the severe pain all over his body and sat up. His eyes were red as if they were dripping blood, showing an unprecedented ruthlessness. Poverty leads to change, and change leads to enlightenment. Lin Sun instantly remembered that there were some strange and mysterious items with him. There was a drop of heart blood of an ancient great man in the spirit-refining gourd, which contained some kind of Tao inheritance. But at this moment it was useless. Luoho's horn, which Lin Sun obtained in the ancient wind world, was said to be left by the Luoho demon king in ancient times, and there was a mysterious Xuanji treasure map in it. But it was also useless at this moment. Golden marrow jade liquid, although this treasure could bring the dead back to life, it could only play a healing role for Lin Sun, who was seriously injured now, but could not help him resolve the current situation. Will fragment, a foreign object obtained from the burial sea in the depths of the Soul Oblivion Sea, imprinted with some fragmented insights belonging to the great men in ancient times, could only be used for cultivation and broaden one's horizon. Spirit-eating insects? No. They were still larvae with limited combat power, and they were no match for the old monsters in the King Realm. Wordless pagoda? No. Insignificant bough? No. Over the years, Lin Sun had collected a lot of magical treasures when he traveled all over the world. But at this moment there were very few of them that could resolve the current crisis. Finally, Lin Sun locked his attention on the gate to heaven in his sea of consciousness. When he was in the monster saint's secret realm, he once ushered in a rare and peerless thunder tribulation. After the heavenly tribulation, he suffered a terrifying Tao injury. He was chased by all sorts of people and almost lost his life. At that time, it was the Tao cutting tactics obtained from the gate to heaven that helped Lin Sun completely refine the Tao injury in his body and completely restore his strength. More importantly, Lin Sun clearly remembered that when he went to the ancient wind world, he was directly moved out of Xiao Empire by the gate to heaven. When I left the gate to heaven last time, the mysterious voice said that I need to master the power of Tao next time. Maybe it's worth a try to resolve the current crisis. In the end, Lin Sun gritted his teeth, held his breath, and sensed the gate to heaven with his spiritual awareness, with the attitude of making every possible effort. Buzz. The familiar scene reappeared in front of him. In the empty and boundless void, a straight green cloud avenue spread out in the void. At the end of the avenue, there was a mysterious gate standing in the sky, as if it hadn't been opened for countless years. But standing here this time, Lin Sun didn't have the feeling of revisiting the old place. A familiar obscure wave spread quietly and swept through Lin Sun's body. Immediately, the cold and hollow voice sounded in the world. Practitioner, the 6th test of Green Cloud Avenue is spirit control. Do you want to start now? Lin Sun took a deep breath and said, "Let's start." Success or failure depended on this. He was willing to give it a try. Even if the hope was small, it was still hope, not despair. But this stage is called spirit control. Is it related to the cultivation of the essence soul? If so, he might be able to preserve a wisp of primordial spirit and abandon his body. When he got out of danger, he could rebuild his body. In the past, Lin Sun had also heard that in the past years, there were also many practitioners who carried out the body disintegration and let their primordial spirit fly away. But this method was too dangerous. A little carelessness would lead to the destruction of both body and spirit. But for Lin Sun, even if this method was dangerous, it was more acceptable than being killed by the enemy. However, to Lin Sun's surprise, he had waited for a long time, but the test didn't start. Was it because he was too injured to take the test? Lin Sun frowned. Chapter 840. In the outside world, has the Great World War come? The voice was as cold as ice, without a trace of emotion, but Lin Sun was stunned and couldn't believe it. If he remembered correctly, this was the first time that the other party had taken the initiative to ask. This undoubtedly proved that his previous conjecture was correct. This voice should be in existence with intelligence. Not yet, but it will come soon. Lin Sun told the truth. Soon. The voice fell into silence. In the vast and boundless world, the green cloud avenue spread straight, and the mysterious gate to heaven stood there. Everything was so familiar. But when this voice began to become different from the past, everything here also became different. Lin Sun suddenly realized why the other party also paid attention to the Great World War. Could it be that the other party had known a long time ago that the world would usher in an unprecedented great change in today's time? Immediately, Lin Sun laughed at himself. He was in a desperate situation and his life was in danger. Even if he knew all the reasons, what could he do? I'm going out to have a look. Suddenly, the cold voice sounded, and the words made Lin Sun stiff all over. Go out? Could it be, just as Lin Sun was shocked, a vague and hazy figure suddenly appeared at the end of the Green Cloud Avenue. It was graceful and ethereal, and couldn't be seen clearly, because there was a rain of light like that of a fairy drowning there, blazing and dazzling. But there was no doubt that it was a woman. Don't worry about it. I'll be back soon. Amidst the misty and chilly voice, the graceful figure that seemed like a flying immortal had already swiftly transformed into a rain of light and vanished. Be back soon? Lin Sun was shocked and a little confused. He didn't expect that there would be such a change in the heaven accessing place this time. Boom! Before Lin Sun could think about it, the scene in front of him suddenly changed. The sixth challenge began. It was dusk. I've found it. This man's breath has appeared here before. In the void, Go Yangbua's figure appeared. His skinny and indifferent face revealed a trace of a smile. Are you finally unable to hold on any longer? On the other side, Go Yangtong's eyes flashed with coldness. A young man at the Tao Insight stage was able to persist until now under our pursuit. It's indeed very rare. However, no matter how strong he is, he can't be stronger than the true strength of the King Realm. When we catch this lad, don't kill him yet. I want to hang his corpse outside Chang, a city of the Tang Empire, for 100 days, so that all the cultivators in the Western Heng Realm can see how miserable the fate of those who dare to offend our clan is. Go Yangbua's tone was light, but his words caused people to tremble. Kill the chicken to warn the monkey? That's right. The disturbance this child has caused damage to our clan's prestige. We must use this cruel punishment to serve as a warning to others. Go Yangtong was deeply convinced. As they spoke, the figures of the two old fellows at the King Realm appeared in the sky before a verdant mountain peak. This is the place. In an instant, their eyes moved and locked on a cave at the bottom of the mountain. The outcome has been decided. Go Yangbua's lips curled into a cold arc. Let me do it. Go Yangtong smiled, and there was a touch of indescribable joy in his heart. After all, he was a king. Now he just killed a young man at the Tao insight stage, so he should feel ashamed. But now he had such emotions, which was really inappropriate. From this, it could be seen how stifled Go Yangtong's heart was from the chase. Today, he finally found a chance to vent his frustrations. Well, remember, don't be anxious to kill this lad. Go Yangbo reminded again, as if he was afraid that Lin Sun's death would not allow him to vent the accumulated anger in his heart. Of course. Go Yangtong smiled. They talked unscrupulously as if they were sure to win. However, when Go Yangtong was about to take action, the smile on his lips suddenly froze, and his pupils dilated. He was stunned. At the same time, Go Yangbo's heart trembled, and he felt an extreme uneasiness that caused the hairs on his body to stand on end. In the cave at the bottom of the mountain, a blurry and hazy figure had walked out, and it was graceful and indistinct. However, in the eyes of Go Yangbo and Go Yangbo, it was a different scene. They were old monsters in the King realm, and they stood proudly above the 5 realms of cultivation and looked down upon the world. In the current world, the King realm was the most powerful. But when they saw this figure, they felt cold all over. What kind of existence was this? Her body seemed to be coiled with bright and dazzling divine chains of order, and there was a rain of ascension, blazing divine light, and all kinds of lights bloomed like fireworks. In the sky, there was a sudden rumble, and auspicious light and rain poured down as if they were worshipping a supreme god that had descended to the world, and it revealed a brilliant phenomenon. She stood there, and she seemed to look down upon the world, and she seemed to be making time bow before her. This was a terrifying phenomenon that could shock the world. What did it mean to stand above all living beings? This was exactly it. Go Yangbo and Go Yangtong were old monsters at the King realm, and they felt that they'd experienced great storms. They'd even had the fortune to witness the elegant demeanor of a saint from afar. However, when compared to this supreme figure that stood before them, even a saint was slightly inferior and couldn't compete for glory with her. This caused their scalps to go numb, and their expressions to turn grim. How could they have imagined that such an unexpected event would actually occur at such a moment when they were about to reap their harvest? Who's this person? Why has she appeared here? Why have I never heard of such a figure in the entire ancient desolation region? Countless questions surged into the hearts of these 2 old monsters, and the feeling of terror and astonishment that they hadn't felt for many years appeared once more in their hearts. Bang! The heavens and the earth started to tremble while chaos surged, and then a divine and extraordinary aura shot into the sky and threw the wind and clouds into disorder. This force was extremely terrifying. It passed through the energy of the Grand Tao in the sky and instantly swept out towards the surroundings. At this moment, all living beings in the world trembled and prostrated themselves. Countless cultivators in West Sea region felt horrified and oppressed, and they had the feeling of wanting to kneel down and prostrate themselves in worship. Earlier, Go Yangbo and Go Yangtong seemed as if victory was within their grasp, and they were extremely arrogant. Yet now they were completely terrified. They were old monsters at the King realm, yet at this moment, they felt terrified as if they were tiny like ants. Both of them had a strong impulse to turn around and flee. However, the divine might of that graceful figure swept through the surroundings, and the aura of the heavens and the earth was suppressed by it, causing them to actually not dare take the slightest step forward. It was like if they dared to do so, then it would be a form of disrespect that couldn't be tolerated by the heavens and the earth. At this moment, countless formidable existences throughout the thousands of states in West Sea region had been jolted awake, and they looked towards the same direction with disbelief. However, even with their strengths, they were only able to sense a supreme pressure that was sufficient to cause all living beings in the world to tremble. Exactly what sort of existence has emerged into the world to actually possess such peerless and extraordinary might? Even the saints of this era are only SOSO, right? How could this be? The battle between the worlds hasn't truly arrived, Yet some supreme energy that's like a taboo is about to emerge into the world? Even the formidable existences at the King Realm were shocked, and it was even to the extent that some seniors that were halfway into the Saint Realm were alarmed by this, and they felt horrified and oppressed. At this moment, that aura shot into the 9 heavens and shocked the 9 hells. Everything in the world submitted before it, and it was like the will that ruled over the world. The surroundings were oppressed while the hearts of countless living beings trembled. Some ordinary figures even thought that a divine miracle had appeared, and they prostrated themselves on the ground, kowtowed, and prayed. I've returned once more. But the ancient desolation isn't a place I'm familiar with anymore, she muttered in a light voice that carried boundless frustration, and her light sigh caused even the heavens and the earth to wail. As soon as she finished speaking, the supreme aura that shot into the sky had converged like tidewater, and it was completely restrained into the graceful figure of the woman. In an instant, all the cultivators far away in West Sea region were dazed, and they recovered from their shock and oppression. They glanced at each other because that instant from before was like a nightmare, and it was so unreal. On the other hand, some old monsters and seniors knew that all of this was true. This made their hearts tremble, and they deduced one after another because they really didn't know why there was such a terrifying aura dormant in the vast territory of West Sea region. She was like the ruler of the world that could overlook the 9 heavens and the earth. After all, it's not the same. The eternal vicissitudes of life and the passage of time. Even if I defeat all enemies and become invincible in the world, how can I resist the rise and fall of the world? Those familiar things don't exist anymore. It turns out that the path of seeking the Great Way has always been like this. I'm destined to walk alone. She seemed to be extremely depressed and frustrated, and her eyes were gloomy. If Lin Sun saw this, he would definitely not dare to believe that the voice that was as cold as ice, empty and indifferent actually contained such emotional fluctuations. Well, I embarked on the right path in loneliness all those years ago, and I was obsessed with something in my heart. The karma of this life has long been predestined. Although the aura on her body had been restrained, the woman stood there still bathed in the dazzling brilliance, and it echoed with the great way of the world, forming a kind of transcendent momentum that made all living beings want to prostrate themselves in worship. Her eyes turned, and the void suddenly collapsed and rumbled. It seemed to be unable to bear the gaze of this kind of gaze, and it seemed as if it was about to be annihilated. Thump! Thump! Go Yangbua and Go Yangtong directly knelt on the ground, and they braced themselves and said in a trembling voice, "We passed by this place without any intention to offend or slander you. Please forgive us, Senior." They were 2 old monsters of the King Realm of the Black Demon Dog clan. They had commanded the world for many years, and they were famous throughout West Sea region. But now they knelt directly like stray dogs. If this was seen by the world, they would probably be unable to believe it at all. Oh, I didn't expect that after countless years, the Black Demon Dog clan could still survive until now. It seems that, the woman let out a sigh with emotion. Her voice had become cold and emotionless, and there was an extra kind of extreme indifference and calmness. It seemed that so long as she was willing, there was nothing in this world that could cause waves in her heart. As soon as her voice fell, a fairy-like beam of light swept out from her fingertips and entered the space between the eyebrows of Go Yangbua and Go Yangtong. From the beginning to the end, not to mention resisting, they didn't even have the time to react. In the next moment, they felt that their souls and memories were seized by a supreme will, and there was a sharp pain in their minds. At the same time, the woman seemed to have understood everything, and her eyes were still emotionless. After a moment of silence, she sighed softly, "Fine, let me end this enmity. I only hope that one day, he can open that door." Suddenly, a bone-piercing chill filled the hearts of Go Yangbua and Go Yangtong, and it made them realize that something was wrong. Chapter 841. Put an end to our enmity? What does this mean? Go Yangbua and Go Yangtong weren't idiots, and they'd lost control of their emotions from the shock they felt earlier. At this moment, they instantly came to an understanding. They were astounded in their hearts because that kid's aura had vanished within the cave, and didn't this woman that possessed a supreme dignified aura walk out from that cave as well? Is she going to stand up for that kid? When they thought up to here, both of them felt oppressed and on the verge of collapse. How could they have imagined that merely pursuing a young man at the heavenly insight realm would actually offend such a great figure? Senior, this is a misunderstanding. Go Yangbu's forehead was covered in sweat as he begged for mercy in terror. Swoosh. On the other hand, Go Yangtong directly fled. He'd already discerned that it was useless even if he begged for mercy. After all, they'd pursued that kid all the way here. Under such circumstances, how could there be any room to turn things around? So, Go Yangtong fled extremely decisively and exerted all his strength. His figure flashed while jet-black light seethed from his entire body, and he rumbled as he transformed into a 300 long black nightmare Tengu that shattered space and seemed to be fleeing for his life. You! Go Yangbu was shocked and furious. He was dumbstruck because he was unable to imagine that she would actually abandon him and flee. The woman's entire body was coiled with strands of gorgeous and resplendent divine radiance that seemed like chains of order. Her expression was indifferent, and even if she watched Go Yangtong flee, her expression didn't change in the slightest. So what if I flee to the ends of the world? I can't avoid death in the end. Amidst her icy cold voice, the woman stretched out a slender and crystalline hand, and she lightly pinched the space in front of her. Her movements were casual and natural. However, a few thousand kilometers away, Go Yangtong, who was fleeing madly, noticed to his astonishment that his figure was actually retreating. The faster he fled, the faster he retreated. No! Go Yangtong was terrified to the point his soul almost left his body, and he was terrified to the extreme as he let out a howl that shook the heavens. However, to his despair, a dignified existence at the king realm like him was actually like a tiny ant at this moment, and he was actually powerless to struggle or resist. He could only watch helplessly as he retreated. On the other hand, Go Yangbu saw a different scene. Go Yangtong's enormous figure actually shrank incessantly, and in the end, he actually became the size of an ant that was pinched between the mysterious woman's fingers. Count Go Yangbu gasped. He was completely stupefied. What kind of supreme technique was this? How could it possess such terrifying and inconceivable divine might? A king realm expert was like an ant. This scene was not a metaphor, but a live performance. Before Go Yangbu could react, his body was also grabbed uncontrollably, and he couldn't help but let out a terrified and helpless roar. At this moment, if he had a chance to choose again, he would never chase after Lin Sun no matter how much courage he had. Unfortunately, it was too late for regret. In merely the blink of an eye, two old fellows at the king realm had vanished. On the woman's palm were two black dogs the size of ants. They were struggling and barking madly, but their voices were too soft and could not be heard at all. This scene was too shocking. The two kings who stood proudly above the 5 realms of cultivation were picked up like weeds, unable to escape from the woman's fingertips like ants. It was just like the legendary ancient secret technique, Universe Finger. If news of this scene were to spread, it would surely cause great waves. So many years have passed. Has the king realm become so fragile now? It hasn't even condensed its Tao seed, and it only has an undeserved reputation. The woman was stunned. In her memory, the power of the king realm could overturn mountains and seas, roar through the universe, and it should not be so weak. Ancient desolation has really become different. With the passage of time, not only the inheritance but also the loss of cultivation power. The woman sighed softly, and the light flowed from her fingertips. Suddenly, the two black dogs that were like ants were obliterated. In this way, 2 king realm experts died. It was too casual and ordinary, as if she had crushed 2 ants inadvertently. This was undoubtedly too shocking. Life and death, reincarnation, all the laws are empty. The homeland is still there, but the old friends are gone. In the murmuring voice, the woman took a step forward. The mountains and the earth shook, the wind and clouds changed, an auspicious light gushed out, producing a magnificent and grand vision. Oh my God, is she still a human? Extremely far away, an old man that was thin like a bamboo fell limply to the ground with a thump, and his eyes were devoid of spirit. Surprisingly, this fellow was Bai Fenglu, who was determined to become the king of information in the ancient desolation domain. However, at this moment, he seemed as if he was possessed, and his soul was in a trance. In his field of vision, he saw a large dragon soaring in the sky, an immortal phoenix coiling around it, a black tortoise opening a path. Numerous rays of auspicious light transformed into rays of light that paved a brilliant path that couldn't be looked at directly, and it shot into the sky. On the other hand, the woman's figure strode through it like an empress. In merely an instant, the woman's figure vanished, and only expanses of divine light flickered and covered the sky. It was dreamy and illusory. This was a phenomenon that was rarely seen throughout the ages, and there were very few records of such a phenomenon in the legends since the ancient times until now. His entire body was drenched in cold sweat, and it was uncomfortable to the touch. However, Bai Fenglu couldn't be bothered about this, and he hastily withdrew a golden leaf from his pocket. Earlier, he'd engraved it in secret with the intention of recording everything he'd seen. However, when he saw the golden leaf, Bai Fenglu was completely dumbfounded. It was empty, and there was nothing on it. It was so clean that there was not a single trace of engraving. Could it be? Could it be a female saint? Bai Fenglu cried out involuntarily. In the ancestral records of the Wind Whisperer clan, it was as sacred as the heavens, and should not be blasphemed. Even the golden leaf of the golden message tree was useless in front of the sacred power. Something big is going to happen in this world. Bai Fenglu had a strong feeling in his heart. Although he didn't have any concrete evidence, he felt that this supreme existence that he suspected to be a female saint was very likely related to demon god Lin. The Black Sea Tengu clan had kicked a huge iron plate this time. Was it going to be unlucky? Bai Fenglu stood up abruptly and took a deep breath. With a fearless attitude, he gritted his teeth and left in a hurry. He was going to find out more about the actions of this suspected female saint. On this day, the Western Hung realm was shaken. Cultivators everywhere felt their hearts palpitate and were moved by the suffocating pressure. They had a premonition that something big was going to happen in this world. Meanwhile, some old monsters of the King realm walked out of seclusion and used all their strength to investigate the news. Previously, they had also been shocked and terrified. The woman walked through the void with a graceful figure. In just a short 15 minutes, she had crossed over 100 continents and the boundless wilderness. Her eyes were filled with a sense of loss, as if she had recalled many ancient events along the way. Is the saint on a journey? Heavens! Along the way, the King realm powerhouses of various places had seen traces of the woman. Unfortunately, it was too ethereal and supreme. They had only caught a glimpse of it before it disappeared. Even so, it still made those old monsters of the King realm tremble in fear, and they almost wanted to prostrate themselves in worship. After a long time, the woman stopped in front of a towering ancient spirit mountain. She stood in the void and looked down. This mountain was majestic, and it was suffused with celestial mist and rising purple energy. Under the afterglow of the setting sun, it was bathed in a faint golden divine glow. Expanses of ancient buildings were scattered within it, and it was peaceful and tranquil. It was like an immortal paradise that was isolated from the world and transcended the mortal world. This mountain was called Kunwu. The number 1 orthodoxy of the Western Hung realm, the profound Inquisition sword school, stood towering above it. Chapter 842. She's headed to the profound Seeker sword school. All along the way, There were many old fellows at the king realm following her. Why has an existence that seems to be a saint made an appearance today? This caused them to be curious. However, when they saw her figure appear before Kunwa Mountain, all of these old fellows were shocked and practically stunned. What does she intend to do? Kunwa Mountain was lofty, divine, and enshrouded by violet energy. At this moment, the hairs on the cultivators of the profound Seeker Sword School that were stationed there stood on end while they felt extreme pressure, causing their entire bodies to stiffen while their expressions turned pale with astonishment. In next to no time, the sect master of the profound Seeker Sword School was alarmed, and he led all the higher-ups of the sect over. However, their expressions changed drastically when they saw the graceful figure that stood towering in midair. They were unable to maintain their composure, and it was like they were facing a supreme overlord. "All of you stand down." Right at this moment, an aged voice resounded from the most mysterious restricted area of Kunwa Mountain, and it emanated an extraordinarily dignified aura. Even Ancestor Tsongjing had been alarmed. In an instant, the entire profound Seeker Sword School was shocked to the extreme. Ancestor Tsongjing was a senior that was like a living fossil, and he was a saint that was renowned throughout the ancient Desolation region. However, he hadn't made a single sound for over 1,000 years. Yet now, he'd been alarmed and issued a decree, so it naturally caused them to be extremely shocked. Moreover, they realized that the graceful figure that arrived abruptly definitely possessed a terrifying background. Otherwise, how could Saint Tsongjing have been alarmed? The woman stood there and seemed to be completely unaware of all of this. She swept Kunwa Mountain with her gaze while a wisp of sorrow appeared on her face. In her daze, she seemed to have heard that carefree, unrestrained, and heroic laughter once more. "If I don't hate the ancients, then I don't see them. If I hate the ancients, then I don't see them." All those years ago, that person wore a white robe, had extraordinary horns on his head, and was in high spirits. He'd once slashed 8,000 mountains apart with a single sword strike and awed the 19 prefectures of the ancient Desolation region. But the passage of time had caused even he to be gone now. The woman sighed in her heart. She strode through space and suddenly arrived at Kunwa Mountain, and her figure appeared before an extremely damaged thatched cottage. During this entire process, the sect guarding grand formation of the profound Seeker Sword School that was said to be capable of annihilating old fellows at the king realm actually didn't show any movement. As for all the cultivators from the profound Seek Sword School, they were dumbstruck, and they were shocked to the point of being stunned on the spot. The scene before their eyes was too extraordinary and terrifying, and it had exceeded their imagination. A sword grindstone resided before the cottage. It was bright like a mirror, and it still emanated a strand of peerless sword insight that was extremely piercing. "Fellow Taoist, please stop. This is the sacred grounds of my profound Seek Sword School, and you're not allowed to spy on it." Saint Tsongjing's voice resounded. It was a saint, and its sage saint. However, from the beginning until the end, he hadn't actually made a move to stop her from entering the profound Seek Sword House, and this undoubtedly displayed that even a saint like him was slightly uncertain. His voice was low, and it revealed boundless loneliness and disappointment. She walked to the front of the sword whetstone and lowered her head to stare at it. The surface of the stone was like a mirror, and it vaguely seemed to reflect the imposing figure that stunned time. She couldn't help but stretch out her jade-like hand, wanting to touch the sword whetstone. "Fellow Taoist, stop." Sage Tsongjing's voice suddenly resounded with a terrifying divine pressure. In an instant, the entire Kunwu Mountain trembled. The clouds in the sky suddenly changed, and a suffocating aura spread out. This was the wrath of a saint. With a single thought, the universe changed and the mountains and rivers trembled. When looked at from afar, the entire Kunwa Mountain was covered in a layer of terrifying divine energy, and it caused all living beings in the vicinity of 5,000 kilometers to tremble and almost fall limply to the ground. The bodies of some of the old fellows at the king realm that followed him here trembled while they revealed astounded expressions. This is the true might of a saint. Could it be that the profound Inquisition sword school's Saint Songjingi intends to make a move against that mysterious woman? Inside the dilapidated thatched hut, the woman frowned. Finally, feeling a little impatient, she gently swiped her finger. A wisp of sword insight surged into appearance and charged into the 9 heavens before descending to Kunwu. Bang! The pressure of a saint that covered this expanse of the heavens and the earth rumbled as it exploded into pieces, and it dispersed towards the surroundings like tidewater and caused deafening rumbling to resound. At the same time, Sage Songjing let out a muffled groan as if he'd suffered a great loss. But right after that, he cried out with surprise and bewilderment, "Eternal cloud sky slash! Why would you know the ultimate inheritance of the profound sword school?" His voice was filled with disbelief. The woman paid no further attention to him. She lightly stroked the sword whetstone with the tip of her finger while a trace of desolation appeared on her face, and she sighed lightly. "Profound one! Profound one! The world respects you as the Emperor of the Sword Tao, but so what? After a myriad of years, it's just as you said that day. Everything in the world has become nothing." As soon as she finished speaking, she turned around and didn't spare another glance at the dilapidated thatched hut and the sword whetstone before she left swiftly. "Fellow Taoist, please wait." Sage Songjing urged her to stay. He'd realized that it was very likely that this woman had some sort of relationship with the founding ancestor of the Profound Pursuit Sword School, Sword Emperor Wenxian. However, the woman had already left swiftly and vanished into the distance in the boundless sky. On this day, Kunwu Mountain was shaken, and the entire Profound Pursuit Sword School was shocked. On the other hand, news related to Sage Songjing's appearance had even swept through Westmost Dimension like a storm. The scalps of all the old geezers at the King Realm who'd witnessed all of this felt numb because even Sage Songjing hadn't been able to make that woman stay. This was too shocking. A gorgeous ray of light shot through space, and it was countless kilometers long. An immortal phoenix circled in the sky while a true dragon soared into the sky, and they revealed a supreme and brilliant dignified aura. It was like an empress had arrived. The woman strode about and gazed at the world. Her footsteps were indistinct, and she instantly traversed a few tens of thousands of kilometers. She seemed indistinct and unfathomable. It wasn't long before she arrived before a river of stars. Vast silver water surged down from the sky, and it whistled through space before surging into the seemingly boundless river of stars. When looked at from afar, the sky and water were connected together, and it was vast and surging. It didn't seem like a river at all, and it was clearly like a boundless ocean that lay across it like a barrier between worlds. Lightning rumbled within the river of stars while time and space fell into disorder. Moreover, terrifying black holes flashed into appearance from time to time, and they emanated an aura of destruction that seemed to intend to devour everything. This was the river of stars that stood between the 4 worlds of the ancient Desolation region. It was like a natural chasm that had obstructed the path of countless cultivators. The River of Stars was taken to be a renowned place of great danger in the ancient Desolation region, and it was filled with all sorts of strange and ominous things. It was mysterious and terrifying. There'd once been a true king who'd tried to traverse the river to arrive at the other side of the world, yet he perished on the way and didn't even leave a corpse behind. It was said that the one who killed this king was merely an inconspicuous red carp. There were many similar legends, and it caused the River of Stars to become a forbidden area. Even the old geezers at the King Realm weren't willing to step foot into it rashly. The woman's clothes fluttered as she stood at the bank of the river, and her entire body was suffused with rays of light that seemed like divine chains of order. She was merely standing there casually, yet it forced the surging silver waves of water within the river to retreat. Rumble! The river water roiled while it rumbled like thunder, and waves of intense sounds of battle and slaughter seemed to resound within the woman's mind. Everything before her eyes seemed to have returned to the past. At that time, the heavens and the earth were shaking while mountains of corpses and seas of blood flowed. All the fiend gods soared through the sky and fought intensely in the world. The glow of blades and the radiance of the grand Tao interweaved together, while the furious roars of the fiend gods and Buddhas resisted each other. At that time, even the sky was sinking while the ground was collapsing. All the living beings that were swept into this battle were unable to escape, and even if they were gods, they were unable to remain unscathed. It was too horrifying. Later on, some great figures of legend appeared as well. They stretched out their hands to pluck the stars and moon, and they struck the sky. It was a scene that seemed like the end of the world had arrived. That battle was called the Battle of Nirvana. From that day onward, the ancient desolation region fell into darkness and collapse, and the ages were like an eternal night. Those people from all those years ago probably didn't know that the ancient desolation region has already transformed into the four worlds and countless shattered minor worlds. After a long time, the woman sighed lightly before turning around and leaving. Only when the woman's figure vanished did a pair of eyes open in the depths of the boundary river, and it stared at her disappearing figure for a long time. In the end, the eyes closed once more and vanished. Black Mirror Province. She just returned from the boundary river, yet she's already entered Black Mirror Province in the blink of an eye. What exactly does she intend to do? The hearts of some old fellows at the King Realm that followed the woman trembled. Black Mirror Province was the territory of the Black Nightmare Tengu clan. After the woman entered Black Mirror Province, she slowed down and seemed to be searching for something. However, this caused the hearts of all the cultivators in Black Mirror Province to tremble and feel terrified. That supreme aura covered the heavens and the earth as if it existed everywhere, and even if it was extremely far away, it could still be clearly sensed. What does she intend to do? The woman traversed through Black Mirror Province, causing many great figures to be uneasy. It was like a peerless storm had passed through, and no matter who saw it, they were unable to maintain their composure. Some ordinary cultivators even seemed as if they'd seen a miracle, and they prostrated themselves on the ground and prayed devoutly. That level of divine might was far too terrifying. In merely a short moment, the woman's graceful figure had already appeared before Savage Cloud Mountain. Savage Cloud Mountain was one of the bases of the Black Nightmare Tengu clan that resided in the Western Ocean region, and it was extraordinary and a first-rate paradise. Who is it? Shit. My God. It's too terrifying. As soon as the woman's figure appeared, a wave of commotion arose on Savage Cloud Mountain while clamorous and panicked voices rose and fell, and the scene was chaotic. In next to no time, all the higher-ups of the Black Nightmare Tengu clan appeared. All of them had serious expressions as they looked at the graceful figure in the distance, and their hearts palpitated and felt uneasy. A peerless expert that had arrived abruptly had suddenly appeared before their clan, and this caused them to realize that the situation was bad. Especially when, even though she was all alone, she seemed like an overlord that controlled the world as she stood there, and the terrifying pressure she emanated caused, no matter how deep their cultivations were, all of them felt suffocated to the point of being on the verge of collapse. May I know why Senior has graced our clan with your presence? In the end, an old fellow at the King Realm of the Black Nightmare Tengu clan walked out, and he forcefully endured the terror in his heart as he took a deep breath and asked. Chapter 843. Killing Dogs. These two words were spoken casually, but they were like a sharp blade that stabbed into the hearts of the Black Sea Tengu clan powerhouses. Their faces instantly became extremely ugly as they felt endless humiliation. In the current world, the Black Sea Tengu clan was so powerful that they could be found all over the ancient desolation region. Even some ancient orthodoxies didn't dare to offend them easily. But now there was a mysterious woman standing in front of the mountain gate and speaking nonsense. This was undoubtedly the greatest humiliation and trampling on the dignity of their clan. The atmosphere was extremely oppressive, and every Black Sea Tengu powerhouse was furious, especially the king stage old monster who had asked the question. He thought that he had been polite enough, but he didn't expect that the answer he got would be like this. This made his face darken, and he couldn't help but say darkly, "Senior, if my clan has offended you in any way, please tell us directly. Why must you humiliate my clan like this? Even though you're extremely powerful, my clan also has a saint. If we really fight, it's hard to say who will win." These words were extremely unyielding because they were indeed very confident. Even a true saint wouldn't be willing to completely fall out with their clan. The other Black Sea Tengu clan members were also refreshed. Indeed, their clan had a saint-level old monster, and they didn't fear anyone in the world. "Hey, you really are audacious." The woman's words were filled with indifference and disdain. The words audacious made the king stage old monster's expression even more unsightly. He was about to retort and say something when he suddenly felt his body stiffen. An indescribable sense of danger flooded his body like a torrent, causing him to tremble all over. His soul almost left his body, and he cursed inwardly. At the same time, a voice that was as cold as ice resounded in his ears. "The killing of dogs starts with you." Under the gaze of countless eyes, the woman stretched out a slender, fair, lustrous, and almost perfect hand and casually grabbed at the air. Puff! The king stage old monster's body suddenly exploded like a crushed bug, turning into a bloody mist that filled the sky and dyed the air red. This was a king that looked down upon the world with monstrous might. Yet now, he didn't even have time to react before he was annihilated on the spot. All of a sudden, all the Black Sea Tengu powerhouses on the barbaric Cloud Mountain were dumbfounded. They were initially fearless, thinking that even if a true saint came, they would not dare to kill indiscriminately. But now they almost collapsed. Who had ever seen such a shocking scene? A life-and-death realm warrior, who stood above the 5 levels, was wiped out like a piece of grass. There was no time to react. He didn't even have the time to scream. Just like that, under countless gazes, he was squashed to death like a bug. This was too terrifying. Those higher-ups were terrified out of their wits, and they felt a chill run down their spines. On the other hand, those ordinary clansmen were terrified to the point their bodies went limp and they sat on the ground while their souls almost left their bodies. But no matter who it was, they all had the same thought in their minds. Today, their clan was probably going to suffer an unprecedented calamity. Sure enough, the woman moved. Her figure was hazy and indistinct, and it was coiled by gorgeous and brilliant divine chains of order. Her might shot up to the 9 heavens and terrified the surroundings. With a single step, the mountains and rivers collapsed, the wind and clouds howled, and space transformed into a terrifying chaotic flow that rumbled. Boundless divine radiance that was dazzling like a rain of light sprayed out from the woman's illusory figure. At that instant, this expanse of the heavens and the earth revealed numerous phenomena. There was the roar of a true dragon, the flap of an immortal phoenix's wings, the black tortoise swallowing the sea. There were even the furious howls of fiend gods and the rumbling of the Tao, and it was like waves of divine lightning was spreading out. Pooh! 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 Even the barbaric Cloud Mountain was collapsing. Ball after ball of bloody mist exploded like dense firecrackers on the bodies of the Black Sea Tengu powerhouses. Bloody. Tragic and beautiful. Terrifying. With this step, at least 1,000 Black Sea Tengu powerhouses were annihilated on the spot. Such a bloody scene was simply like purgatory had appeared in the world, and this expanse of the heavens and the earth revealed a dark red color of blood. "No! Damn it! Don't you dare! No!" Shrill, miserable, and terrified cries resounded and seethed in the heavens and the earth, causing this place to seem like a slaughterhouse that caused one's scalp to go numb. Some Black Sea Tengu powerhouses intended to flee, yet they were directly swept by numerous strands of divine radiance, causing their bodies to be incinerated and vaporized in midair, and not even ash was left behind. On the other hand, some powerhouses knelt on the ground and begged for mercy. But even then, they were still unable to escape the fate of being annihilated. This was too terrifying. With barbaric Cloud Mountain as the center, an area of 500 kilometers was confined by an extremely terrifying force. In this expanse of the heavens and the earth, the woman was like a ruler, and she annihilated them with a flick of her finger. Not to mention ordinary experts, even great figures like half-step kings and old fellows at the king realm seemed tiny like grass at this moment, and it was futile no matter how they struggled. The woman was too extraordinary and divine. Her entire body was bathed in the brilliant glow of the Tao, and she was hazy and graceful. She simply didn't seem like a person of the world, and she seemed like a god that looked down upon the world and controlled the life and death of all living beings. Rumble! Barbaric Cloud Mountain collapsed while bloody mist bloomed one after another, and brilliant divine rays of light enveloped this area. From the beginning until the end, the woman had only taken a single step. But this step seemed to be too world-shocking. My God! What did I see? She's all alone, yet she actually trampled through barbaric Cloud Mountain and killed her way into the territory of the Black Nightmare Tengu clan. King Realm experts are like grass before her, and they were casually annihilated. Who exactly is she? What sort of cultivation does she possess? It's too terrifying. She entered and left Kunwa Mountain as if she was entering an unstoppable area, and even the profound Inquisition sword house's Saint Songjing didn't dare forcefully make her stay. Now, she's even slaughtering her way into barbaric Cloud Mountain. She's trying to pierce through the heavens. All the King Realm experts that were extremely far away from barbaric Cloud Mountain felt their scalps go numb while their hearts trembled, and they felt unprecedented shock. She's too formidable. Even though they were merely looking at her from afar, it caused them to feel almost suffocated, and they truly didn't dare imagine what sort of terrifying pressure they would suffer if they were to face that woman. Who exactly is she? No one knew. But there was no doubt that this was absolutely a shocking event, and once news of it spread to the outside world, it would cause a great earthquake. This sort of divine dignity and strength was sufficient to terrify others to death. After all, the strongest known existence in the ancient Desolation region was only a saint. On the other hand, even though this woman's strength couldn't be seen through, there was no doubt that she was absolutely not inferior to a saint. At this moment, the entire Black Mirror province had fallen into a state of shock, and many cultivators had once again sensed the supreme aura that caused their hearts to palpitate with terror. They were anxious and uneasy, and they didn't know what had happened. But they had a premonition that a terrifying event that shook the heavens and the earth had absolutely occurred in the Black Mirror province today. In a short moment, the curtains to the battle had already been drawn. The extraordinarily beautiful barbaric Cloud Mountain, that was over 10 kilometers tall, had been razed to the ground now, and it was covered in blood and a mess. It wasn't long before some King Realm experts finally dared to approach carefully. My God! When they saw the terrifying scene before them clearly, even these old fellows that were accustomed to experiencing storms were terrified and flabbergasted. This place was covered in blood, wreckage, and corpses that had fallen into pieces. Besides that, the entire barbaric Cloud Mountain had collapsed and been razed to the ground. The world is about to change. These King Realm experts gasped. The Darksea Tengu clan covered the entire ancient Desolation region, and even though the barbaric Cloud Mountain was only one of the residences of their clan, it was comparable to an ancient power in the Westworld. Yet now, including the barbaric Cloud Mountain and the Darksea Tengu clan that resided within it, everything had been destroyed, and even the King Realm experts were unable to escape. This was simply no different from the impact of annihilating an entire orthodoxy. Most terrifying of it all was that all of this had occurred in merely a short moment, and the person that did this was merely a woman. A woman comparable to an ancient emperor. The news was bound to be unable to be concealed, and it started to leak and spread. The barbaric Cloud Mountain had been destroyed, a world-shocking battle had occurred here, and all the experts of the Darksea Tengu clan had been annihilated. As soon as this news spread, it caused a shocking uproar. For a time, the entire Westworld was shaken, and the entire world was shocked. Countless gazes shot towards the barbaric Cloud Mountain in Black Mirror Province in unison, and countless secret agents started to inquire about the details like madmen. At the same time, the woman strode through the sky amidst the desolate group of mountains and started to return. Her footprints had covered numerous provinces in Westworld during this trip, and she'd gone to the Tang province's Kunwa Mountain for the sake of reminiscing about the past. She'd once headed to the Boundary River that was taken to be a place of great danger in the world, and she sighed with emotion when she recalled the Battle of Nirvana. After that, she turned around and stepped into Black Mirror Province, flattened the barbaric Cloud Mountain, and wiped out a residence of the Darksea Tengu clan. All of this had merely occurred in less than the time for an incense stick to burn. Leave when you're done, and it's best to conceal your merits and reputation. Crack! Right when the woman strode through the sky, she suddenly stopped moving, and her eyes looked towards the sky while her expression was indifferent and cold as before. Only the space between her brows carried a wisp of a solemn expression. A horrifying rift in space had actually appeared in the clear sky, and at the same time, a spear image that was filled with supreme dignity flashed out from within the rift. Clang! The spear image howled as the heavens and the earth rumbled and resonated, and it was like the sonorous tune of the Grand Tao resounded through the world, while an indescribable aura of slaughter swept out from within the spear image. At that instant, it was simply like a god had awakened from within the spear image, and it was interweaved with the supreme energy of the Tao and arts as it rumbled, as it pierced down towards the woman. The woman didn't dodge and stood there silently. She knew that it was useless even if she dodged. During the ancient times, there were numerous extraordinary figures that had been killed beneath the spear image, and they died with resentment while the path they pursued towards the Tao had become nothing. Because this spear's origins were unfathomable, and it was like the embodiment of the Grand Tao, yet it represented inauspiciousness and death. It was also taken to be the Tao's severance spear. Pooh! The woman's chest was penetrated, yet she seemed to be completely unaware of it, and her figure flashed before vanishing into thin air. On the other hand, the spear image was unable to find its target, and it searched for a long time in space before returning to the rift in space in the end. Instantly, the rift vanished while the sky recovered its calm once more, and it seemed as if nothing from before had occurred. A blurry and hazy figure appeared before the cave that had once caused Go Yangbua and Go Yangtong to die with resentment. Compared to the past, her imposing aura was still the same. However, her figure seemed to have become even more blurry like mist, and it seemed as if it would disperse at any moment. A great era will arrive in the end, and your Tao's severance energy is nothing to be afraid of. The woman glanced at the sky with a chilly expression before she turned around swiftly and vanished within the cave. Chapter 844. Shocking news. The savage Cloud Mountain has been flattened, and all the Black Nightmare Tengu clan experts residing there have been annihilated. Rumor has it that a woman suspected to be divine took action. She killed King Realm experts like cutting grass. She is terrifying beyond compare. That's not all. That woman's footprints even appeared on the Kunwu mountain of the profound Sikh sword house, and she seemed to have entered an uninhabited area. Even Saint Songjing, who'd been silent for a few thousands of years, was alarmed. A piece of news like this was like a storm that swept through the entire Great West world, and it caused an enormous uproar. Who was that woman? No matter if it was the normal Xiozha or the old freaks of the major factions, they were all shocked. The Profound Inquiry Sword School was the #1 sect in West Hing Dimension, and it had a true saint protecting it. However, It didn't dare to make a move against that woman and allowed her to come and go as she pleased. The Black Sea Heavenly Dog clan's power spread across the 4 great worlds of the ancient Desolation realm. However, in one day, the clan's residence in the West Hung realm was uprooted. All of this clearly displayed how terrifying the woman that seemed to be a goddess was. She was comparable to an ancient emperor, and with a flick of her finger, she could overturn the heavens and earth. For a time, the entire Westlast world was in an uproar as countless cultivators discussed and guessed the origins and cultivation of the mysterious woman. Perhaps only a true sage would dare to destroy the habitat of the Black Sea Tengu clan. Many great figures came to such a conclusion, which shocked them. When did another divine-level existence that they had never heard of appear in the Western Hung realm? Even Saint Songjing didn't dare to force her to stay. I'm afraid the word sacred isn't enough to describe that lady. I even doubt if she belongs to our generation. After all, in the entire ancient Desolation region, I've never heard of any saint with such divine power. Because they did not understand the situation, there were many discussions and speculations, but in the end, no one could give a definite answer. However, there was one similarity, and that was that the mysterious woman's strength was considered to be at the divine level, or even stronger. The Profound Inquiry Sword School has spoken. They announced that the mysterious woman was closely related to their orthodoxy, and was a divine existence. It wasn't long before a piece of news from the Profound Inquiry Sword House spread, and it instantly caused the already extremely turbulent West Hung region to be completely thrown into an uproar. Does this mean that the Profound Sword School is expressing goodwill towards that mysterious woman? Many major forces made such a judgment. However, no one knew the real inside story, so they were unable to speculate further. The sky is going to change. I can foresee that the Black Nightmare Tengu clan will definitely not let the matter rest. After all, they've lost at least 5 King Realm experts and a few tens of thousands of clansmen in the West Hung region this time. This is a deep enmity. That's right. The Black Sea Tengu clan also has a saint-level existence overseeing it. If that's the case, there might even be a battle between the saints in the future. When all these discussions converged onto the effects caused by this storm, the entire West Ocean region fell into a state of shock. A battle between saints? The Black Sea Tengu clan had suffered such heavy losses. Would they really disregard everything and go all out? All sorts of discussions sounded out in different parts of the West Hung world, and in the end, it even started to spread towards the East Victory world, the Big Dipper world, and the South Profound world. Amidst the clamor of discussions, many practitioners were concerned about the same question. Why would that mysterious woman appear today? Why did she want to slaughter all the Black Sea Tengu clan experts of the barbaric Cloud Mountain? It must be that the Black Sea Tengu clan is used to being arrogant and unintentionally provoked this mysterious woman, provoking this great calamity. Some people took pleasure in their misfortune. That's right. These black dogs are cold and cruel, and they've done innumerable things that incur the wrath of the heavens and the resentment of men in these past few years. They deserve this retribution. Even more practitioners felt delighted, and they felt that the mysterious woman's actions were simply gratifying, causing them to be delighted. But these analyses were emotional in the end, and they seemed to be very unreliable. Thus, they didn't have much confidence in them. At this moment, someone ridiculed the Wind Speaker clan and questioned them. Isn't your Wind Speaker clan known for being the most well-informed? Why hasn't there been any truly big news that has been revealed until now? Instantly, some busybodies started to criticize the Wind Speaker clan. They felt that as long as they encountered some trivial matters, they would run faster than anyone else, but once they encountered a major matter, they would be completely at a loss. This caused the higher-ups of the Wind Speaker clan to instantly feel extremely embarrassed, and they felt that they'd lost face. Since the news about the mysterious woman had spread, they'd arranged for all their forces to investigate. But the embarrassing thing was that the mysterious woman's movements were elusive, and she'd traversed the boundless mountains and rivers in the blink of an eye. How could they possibly find out any information in an instant? Investigate. Go F*King investigate. Otherwise, where will our Wind Speaker clan put our face? Our ancestor was the famous king of news in ancient times. How can we allow others to criticize and blaspheme such a supreme reputation? Among the Wind Speaker clan, the old monsters were furious and roared. At this critical moment, Bai Feng Lu stood up and stuck a golden leaf on the message tree. Suddenly, the Shiheng domain was stirred up, and everyone paid attention to it. They thought that the Wind Speaker clan had finally come up with some substantial news. Who would have thought that the golden leaf was empty, and there was no news at all? Damn, is your Wind Speaker clan playing with people? How extravagant! There's no news at all, and you've even used a golden leaf. It's obvious that you're fooling people. Isn't your Wind Speaker clan too unreliable? If that's the case, who will believe in the news of your Wind Speaker clan in the future? It's too disappointing. For a moment, everyone was furious, and they all criticized the Wind Speaker clan. However, Bai Feng Lu seemed very calm. When he successfully ignited the anger of countless practitioners, he opened his mouth with a serious look and announced the news. In the ancient books of my clan, it is recorded that the sacred is like the sky, and cannot be slandered. The golden leaf that you're looking at now was once engraved with the traces of that mysterious woman, but in the end there was only a blank space left. As soon as these words came out, countless practitioners were stunned, and they were skeptical. Really? Everyone was doubtful. Even the higher-ups of the Wind Speaker clan were stunned. Did this Bai Feng Lu want to use a blank golden leaf to shut the mouths of the world? Bai Feng Lu was a practitioner of the Wind Speaker clan who aspired to become the king of news. Naturally, he could not tolerate others questioning his news. Not long after, he revealed a piece of shocking news. Everyone, do you remember the news about Demon God Lin that I released a while ago? Bai Feng Lu appeared to be very patient. He did not reveal all the news at once, and he played the trick of loosening the reins only to grasp them better to perfection. The cultivators of West Hengjie were astounded. They did indeed remember that a while ago, news had once spread that Fiend God Lin had furiously slaughtered a group of black hyenas in Snow Maple City, and he'd once said he would slaughter all the black hyenas in the world. Later, Demon God Lin killed 4 half-step king-tiers from the Black Demon Dog clan alone in a tight encirclement and finally left. At that time, it caused a sensation in the West Heng realm. But very soon, the Black Demon Dog clan launched their revenge, sending 2 king-tier existences to pursue and kill Demon God Lin, causing this matter to instantly attract the attention of the entire West Heng realm. Until now, no one knew whether Demon God Lin was dead or alive. However, what did this matter have to do with that mysterious woman? Many practitioners were confused and angry, thinking that Bai Feng Lu was deliberately mystifying things. Some of the more intelligent people vaguely guessed a certain possibility, and their hearts could not help but tremble, and they could not help but gasp. Could Demon God Lin be related to that mysterious woman? When they thought like this, they became even more curious, and their appetites were completely whetted. At this moment, some ancient orthodoxies were attracted by the news that Bai Feng Lu released, and they started to pay attention to this matter. It couldn't be helped, even they had not obtained any information about that mysterious woman until now. Imperceptibly, Bai Feng Lu had become the center of attention of the West Heng realm at this moment, and this caused him to feel excited and elated. What did it mean to be the center of attention of the world? That was it. The vanity in Bai Feng Lu's heart was greatly satisfied, and only then did he reveal the shocking news that he had discovered. Although I don't know who that mysterious woman is, I know that when she first appeared, she killed 2 king-tier existences from the Black Demon Dog clan. And those 2 king-tier existences were Go Yangbua and Go Yangtong, who were pursuing Demon God Lin. After that, that mysterious woman headed to Kunwa Mountain, and that's how the series of events that happened after that happened. From this, it can be inferred that it's extremely likely that the mysterious woman is an expert from the sect behind demon god Lin. As soon as this piece of news appeared, countless cultivators were dumbfounded, and they were shocked on the spot. That mysterious woman is actually related to demon god Lin? This seems to be very unreal and inconceivable. Even though it's difficult to imagine, this explanation makes sense. After all, who in the West Hung realm doesn't know that demon god Lin is being pursued by the Black Demon Dog clan? Now that mysterious woman has appeared and flattened Cloud Savage Mountain, she's obviously standing up for demon god Lin. Many cultivators were excited, and the more they analyzed it, the more they felt it was reasonable. Is it really related to demon god Lin? How unbelievable! Who could have imagined that such a monstrous and terrifying existence is standing behind him? I knew it. A peerless youth like demon god Lin is absolutely not an ordinary figure, and he definitely has an extremely mysterious and ancient orthodoxy behind him. Moreover, that mysterious woman is probably a senior of demon god Lin's sect. However, there were also people who refuted this, and they felt that Bai Feng Lu was completely far-fetched and speaking without thinking. If demon god Lin had such a formidable existence standing behind him, would the Black Demon Dog clan dare to rashly pursue him? What a joke! If demon god Lin had such a senior, he would have long been famous in the world. How could he only be known by us now? This is obviously fake. Some cultivators were disdainful, thinking that Bai Feng Lu was overestimating Lin Sun by associating him with that mysterious woman.